Okay, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We're going to call the meeting to order and ask you to all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Molly, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
All right, Mayor Atwell,
Present.
Alderperson Eicher,
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski,
Here.
Commissioner Merrick,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
Commissioner Weiler,
Here.
and then Commissioner Cahalan and Commissioner Greenway are excused this evening.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, the minutes.
I'll move to approve the
I'll
September
second.
29th meeting minutes.
And Laura seconds.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, public hearing. Public hearing number 1, zoning code text amendment to section 52-62 5I1 and section 52-14228. This matter will be rescheduled for a future date.
I may have put the wrong date in the notice, and so we have to renotice it for the November meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
that's fine.
number 5 is done. Okay, number 6, citizens' comments on the consent agenda. That's only for one item. Is there anybody that would like to speak about 501 Wells Street? Anybody like to speak about 505 Wells Street? Seeing none, citizens' consent agenda comments are now closed, and we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
Oh,
Think
that was
Ed got it?
close.
I
Yeah.
think Ed got it.
Yeah, it did.
Spread it out. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay, we'll move on to number 8, project presentation by applicant regarding item 10A. So if the applicant would like to come up and give the audience that's here a general overview, come up now. Yep. And this is just to make sure everybody who's going to make citizens' comments after get the most latest information from the applicant. We'll have citizens' comments, and then we'll have the applicant come up again for their full discussion with the Planning Commission as it reads in the agenda. Mr. Doro, please, name and address.
Thank you. Test. There it
Good.
is. Brian Dorrell, 108 Kestrel Way, Heartland, Wisconsin.
Brian, before you start, do you want me to put a plan set on the screen?
You can, sure.
I'll start with that. Is that good?
Perfect. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. This is my third time I've been here. A couple months ago, presented the conceptual framework for what we were proposing, and then had the privilege of taking all of you to see the actual site. Over the course of the last couple months, I've knocked on 80 doors around the property and east of Maple Avenue, about a quarter mile. Held several community meetings, ongoing dialogue, open lines of communication with the neighbors, with the residents, with the community at large, frequent updates to the community as things were changing. Based on my desire to, as I mentioned, I came here with a new start. I wanted to build trust with the neighbors. Over the years, this has been somewhat of a contentious situation. And as I mentioned from the first meeting that I was here, I wanted a new start. And building trust, building confidence with the neighbors was my top priority. And I can't emphasize a new beginning. Since the last time I made a proposal, I have made two significant changes based on what I've heard from the neighbors. At this time, period, I am no longer considering outdoor shooting at the Heartland Gun Club or what we will call the Delafield Oaks Range. No outdoor shooting. And the second part is the two things that were always prevalent during the conversation, safety and noise. That was the concern of the neighborhood. And so Talking to the architect, talking to some of the plan developers, we are now proposing to put the indoor rifle, the indoor pistol below the surface. You won't hear them, you won't see them, and we can guarantee the highest degree of safety. When I was talking to the neighbors, again on the doorstep, that was their concern, safety and noise. And quite frequently, I was told, why don't you just put it inside? Everything inside. And I come here today and say I listened to them, and we're putting everything inside. So one thing I want a word of caution is, this is my business plan. Indoor shooting, and we know the facility. Complete sale of guns, ammunition, training, accessories, enrichment courses, educational opportunities, a clubhouse, and a reception area for special events. Now, I don't come here at all to speak on behalf of the Heartland Gun Club. Their business model is outdoor shooting. I am totally different. All mine is indoor. And that's my comments on the updates.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, we will now go on to number 9, citizens' comments on items other than the consent agenda items and public hearing. So everyone is limited to 3 minutes. And the reason we limit it to 3 minutes is, as you can see, on a night like tonight, we have a lot of people that might want to speak. So we want to be able to get this through so we can hear everyone, get their input, and move on to the business that we have on the agenda. There's nothing wrong with coming up and saying, I agree with these 3 key points. You don't have to take the full 3 minutes. If you can do it in one, wonderful. But I will ask you to stop, and I'll give you a warning. At 3 minutes, I really need you to quit, to be respectful to everybody that's in the room, okay? So if you have a question when you come up here, ask. We can't have a two-way discussion, but if you have a question, I will do my best to answer it for you so we can proceed quickly. We'll go ahead and get started, and the way I do it is basically by raising your hand. Whoever's hand I see first basically is the person that's going to come up. But I did tell the attorney for a group of neighbors I would let him go first. So if you kindly come up, sir. And again, name and address when you get to the mic, please.
Good evening. Attorney Mitchell Olson with the Axley Law Firm in Madison, Wisconsin. I represent a number of concerned neighbors around the Heartland Sportsman's Club property. We sent a letter out earlier today. I had some copies that I dropped off there. Given the 3 minutes, I'm going to kind of summarize quickly. The applicant here is requesting that you and the City Council interpret the code that an indoor shooting range complex with a liquor license is a permitted use in the B6 zone. We oppose that request as an illegal interpretation of the zoning code and is unacceptable public policy contrary to public health, safety, welfare. I want to make clear, we do not oppose the concept of this indoor shooting range, which eliminates outdoor shooting on the property. We think that's a good idea. We simply want the city to follow its code and exercise regulatory control of this land use by requiring a conditional use permit so that the various attributes of this project can be reviewed and handled accordingly. The current version of the code in B6 does not allow a commercial zoning shooting range operation as a permitted or a conditional use. In fact, note that shooting range is not permitted or conditional in any of your zoning districts as far as I can see. The applicant argues that section 52-111 sub AA allows you and the City Council to say substantially similar to a list of 50-some uses is this shooting range. The number of uses in this commercial holding zone are very explicit. It talks about indoor bowling alleys, gymnasiums, swimming pools, skating rinks, indoor tennis facilities, movie theaters, and a lot of low-level retail. I asked my 14-year-old son, does a shooting range, indoor shooting range equivalent to those? He says no. I think it's kind of common sense. You have a real detailed list of what's regulated. This isn't on there. There's a reason. And the city has their own ordinance that restricts firearms in the city with very limited exceptions. The state of Wisconsin federal government has tons of regulations on firearms. This isn't a bowling alley or a swimming pool. It needs to be considered apart from a permitted use that any user in any district, business district that can so qualify, can automatically put a shooting facility wherever in the city. I think that goes too far, and it's not the intent. So it's our, again, legal opinion that the city would be acting unlawfully if it granted the applicant a permit under B6 as a matter of right. My clients wish to work with the applicant and work with the city to get this done the right way, and that's through an issuance of a permit, through a conditional use process. I've laid out in my letter a number of different alternatives. The code has sort of a planned development, GDP, SIP, conditional use process already that's available to you, or you can amend your zoning code to list this as a conditional use and go through that process. It's a couple extra months, but I think it's time well spent to get this done right. Again, we want to be good neighbors. We want to work with you all on the applicant, but just saying it's a permitted use, go ahead, do what you want, and be done with it. It's contrary to your code. I don't think it's fair to the community. This is a unique facility, and it should be given the attention it deserves.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I did promise the clerk that I would go through Zoom folks that are online first before I started in the room. So we have anybody on Zoom that would like to speak?
If you want to speak on Zoom, if you can turn on your camera and wave or raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay.
Name and address.
Jeff Krajicek.
Oops. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, Jeff Krajicek, 2731 Burries Road, Delafield, Wisconsin. I just wanted to say a couple of things with respect to the proposal. I think the safety matter and creating an environment that would be very family friendly and family oriented, a place to be able to teach children, in addition to hunting, about firearm safety, about proper etiquette, about the rules of safety, the big four, how to successfully and safely discharge a firearm and learn the appropriate way. There is very few places that offer a very nice family-friendly environment. As I went through these plans and the evolving of the plans and the background, I was just very much impressed with the orientation. This is going to be I believe, a destination and a family-friendly one which would be good for the community, would be raising tax money, so on and so forth. And there is no doubt with Brian's background that safety would be number one, number two, number three, number four. And the training and his educational background and the programs that I've reviewed that he's set up are just top tier. And I think it'd be something that would benefit the community, and a lot of other folks in the surrounding communities could enjoy the opportunity as well. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak during citizens' comments? Seen anybody else, Molly?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, then we're going to move to the room, and we'll go with whoever that gentleman back there in the back.
I couldn't see your names from back there. Hello, Mark Sheppel, Maze Walk in Pewaukee.
What is the whole address?
N50W28341 Maze Walk in Pewaukee.
Can you spell maze for me, please?
MAES WALKE. Gotta add the E. When I first got the description of this project, I looked at it and I thought, it's nice because with the range shut down, the public range shut down at WCTC, I've really been missing the opportunity that my family takes to go out and shoot together. And my daughter, surprisingly, I didn't think my daughter would really take to this, but my daughter, who was probably just 2 years ago, so 14 or so at the time, just looked forward to that father-daughter shooting time. I guess it sounds funny to say it, but it was great bonding time for us. And shooting was a family sport. My wife went over to the CTC range once, came back so proud. She had her target sheet, and she told me all the things that the officer who was running that session had told her. Basically, the officer said to take this home, show your husband, and tell him he better mind his P's and Q's. But it was a great family experience. And when I read this proposal, at first I thought, oh, good, there's going to be another opportunity. But the depth and the richness of what this gentleman has put together in terms of a destination, the shooting range, yes, is a core component, but the educational opportunities, the space to have team or programs come out from companies. Believe me, I've done a lot crazier at department outings, team building exercises. Shooting would have been a huge interest. Hot air ballooning was not. The depth of the activities envisioned for here, the amount of forethought that's been put in around safety and around impact to the surrounding community, I think would be more than sufficient for me if I were one of those people living, just on the other side of G, I think it is. So I humbly urge the committee, the council, commission, to think upon this favorably. It certainly has my family's support, and support of a lot of other like-minded folks. I don't know if I'll end up being the first person to sign up there, but I'll guarantee I would be in the low single digits.
Great, thank you very much for your comments. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Joan Zepecki. I live at N8 W30524 Cherokee Trail, and I've shared a property line with the Heartland Sportsman's Club property for 26 years. I've had a number of meetings with Brian over the last few months. Just want to reiterate again what our attorney has said. We're not opposing, we're very appreciative of the elimination in Brian's plan of the outdoor range shooting. That's what we want. We would like to see something in perpetuity that will be prohibited. Whoever owns the property throughout time, that should not exist any longer. Our concern is we want him to be successful. The plans are lovely. Want his business to survive and thrive. But it's very important, we believe, for you to grant a conditional use permit. You have to modify B6 to allow him to operate. Modify your code that you tried to protect us from a few years ago. And where you eliminated and prohibited the outdoor range. We just ask that you modify it again to engage in a conditional use permit so that there can be some ongoing monitoring. Because if Brian's not here, we don't know who's operating that business or what the future holds for that range. So that's what we're really asking for, is that you take a look at it from a conditional use from a CUP standpoint once again. And then we can sit down and we talk about this in the future, and we can have a really short meeting tonight.
Great, thank you. Who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Fujina. Address is 2704 Burries Road in Heartland. I'm honored to be here this evening to speak with you on Brian DeRoe's behalf and for the support of the Delafield Oaks Range. Brian and I have known each other for over 4 years, and I'm excited about this opportunity for him and the Lake Country to see this proposal realized. One of the values Brian and I share is the importance of being able to defend yourself and your personal property. This is one of the main reasons people purchase firearms, for personal defense of themselves and that property. I work in downtown Milwaukee, so safety is always a concern of mine. I'm constantly aware of my environment and surroundings and the need to feel safe. One way I've created a sense of personal safety and the ability to defend myself is earning a black belt in Taekwondo and staying physically fit. I also teach fitness classes in Oconomowoc. I've taught community fitness classes for over 21 years, including cardio kickboxing, strength training, self-defense, and personal training. One of the most important things I teach my students is safety and the importance of remaining physically fit. The stronger your body is, the less chance of accidents and injuries, especially as we age. I also educate them about using proper form when exercising to achieve their goals safely. I have completed a gun safety course, and I feel that I've gained the education and proper knowledge to handle a gun safely. The better educated and trained we are about how to use firearms and care for our weapons, the less chance for accidents and injuries. I completed my training feeling confident and empowered, and I hope that other women will take the opportunity and feel the same as I did. The Delafield Oaks Range will provide for the proper education and training necessary for self-defense, safety, and the proper use of firearms. This facility will also bring community together, where community members have a place to meet, learn about gun safety, train to use them properly, and share those common interests together. I am very supportive of this community, Brian's efforts in the development of the Delafield Oaks Range, and the need for people to be able to defend themselves, have the ability to enjoy their interests safely with the knowledge gained through education and proper training. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Oh, that gentleman in the back.
Gary Hovila, 3423 Broken Bow Trail. And I'm going to kind of add a little color to what Mitch Olson said and Joan just said, but I'm a resident 24 years. I know a lot of you have been here, most of you haven't, but I've been opposed to the Heartland Sportsman's Club from day one, quite frankly, and learned over the years some of the issues that existed there. Right now, perhaps some of you are saying, well, hey, you won, there's not going to be an outdoor shooting, and that certainly is comforting, and we do view that as a positive, but we also recognize that the conditional use permit that we seek out, and Mitch has articulated, is actually a pretty big piece of it. And the context of the history here is that although all of you are new and weren't there 24 years ago when I first spoke, there has been, from the history of the city and the operators of the gun club, a lot of mistrust. And so when it came out that a new conditional use permit was not going to be coming forward, and the alternative is no conditional use permit or modification of the existing one, that's where it created some talk amongst the neighbors that here we go again. Can we really trust this? And I have no doubt Brian Doro is going to bring up probably another couple dozen people to say the goodness of this whole project. And quite frankly, a lot of my neighbors feel the same. There's some that are opposed that, quite frankly, I think they're going to join. It's probably going to be a successful thing, I have no doubt. But the conditional use permit, at least the way I was thinking of it, from Brian's perspective, likely it's no oversight, or that's how we feel it is. There's no oversight. It's going to be without condition. For the city, I'm sure it would be simple to just not issue a conditional use permit, because then you're done. You're done. But wouldn't that be the same if you took the time to draft up a conditional use permit and you abided by the terms of the conditional use permit, and you'd be done as well? There wouldn't be any issues because nothing would come to the forefront. I think the fear is that there's going to be continued problems, and if everything is as it says, there shouldn't be a problem. So going through the process of a conditional use permit, so not signing one, I'm saying you don't want to bother taking the time to do it. You are concerned you can't reach consensus with Mr. Doro of the terms, or you believe whatever terms are agreed to will likely not be adhered to. So you'll have to deal with this over and over again, and that would be disconcerting.
Need you to wrap it up, please.
Yeah, well, in conclusion, I'd be redundant saying most of what I just said again, but I'm personally not opposed to this at all. I'm opposed to, I think, just getting quickly through without a conditional use permit. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Who'd like to be next? Sir in the pink hat, I think that is in the back. I saw your hand first.
My name is Charles Winter, North 8, West 30658, Broken Bow Trail, Town of Delafield. Lead oxidizes when exposed to air and dissolves when exposed to acidic water. The dissolved lead migrates through the soil to contaminate groundwater supply. Since 1955, the Heartland Sportsman's Club has deposited an estimated 391 tons of lead into the soil of its 34-acre property. With this scenario in mind, the following questions arise. Who will investigate this probable case of lead pollution? Who will clean up the estimated 391 tons of lead present in the gun club soil? And who will pay for the gun club effort? And when will all this be done? Given the serious consequences, it would be prudent to investigate and resolve the possible lead contamination problem caused by the Heartland Sportsman's Club. And I have here a quantification of the lead deposits at the gun club that I'd like to submit to the clerk, if I might.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next? I think I saw the lady in the back first.
Ladies first.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bingenheimer, and I'm here on behalf of Jeff and Laura Otto. They live at 2640 Peninsula Avenue. I'm just going to read their comments and be done. To my fellow and community residents and our leadership, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. It is our understanding that as a member of the community, Brian Doro and the Delafield Oaks Range would like permission to construct an indoor firearms range on club property. We've reviewed Mr. Doro's impressive list of personal and professional experiences involving safe, meaningful, and valuable instruction on the proper use of firearms and sport for sport and safety. If we're being completely honest, it's staggering to think that someone with his background, number one, lives in our quiet community, and number two, is ready to add value and meaning to the existing club site. Based on our research, first and third-party studies, information from the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Team, the Major Cities Police Chiefs Association, and more, this proposal appears to be an attempt at improving safety, security, and functional offerings of the Delafield Oaks Range. Regardless of where you are in the firearms debate, wide availability and access to proper firearms education and training is a topic that receives considerable bipartisan support at local, state, and national levels. Friends, this is our chance for our community to create a destination for the instruction on responsible gun use. Now, we can fight community growth, firearm purchase trends, and the opportunity to add much-needed feature to the club property, not just bringing business to the club, but more importantly to the community, or we can help it happen. We realize safety was a concern in the past, but after reading the Journal Sentinel's coverage of these events and Mr. Doro's commitment not only to secure the facility, but add an indoor range, which are markedly more safe and secure, certainly mitigated any worries that we might have had. So please, on our behalf, and the many silent voices in this community who support this growth, approve this expansion, and know that by doing so, you're also approving further growth for Heartland, Delafield, and all of our communities here. Sincerely, Jeff and Laura Otto.
Great, thank you very much. Sir, you've tried a few times.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and respected members of the council. My name is James Fendry. That's F as in Frank, E-N-D-R-Y. I reside at 5725 Clover Lane in the village of Greendale, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, 53129. I'm here tonight to represent before the council an organization known as Peaceful Warriors. What this organization is nothing but cops and police officers, of which I am one. And what the organization has been doing for a number of years now, under the leadership of Captain Bolender, the second in command in the city of Oak Creek, Milwaukee County, is providing training courses for churches, for businesses, for recreational facilities, and a number of other items in dealing safely with such things as civil threats, but also such things as active shooters that may come upon the property. One of the things that is needed by our officers who are doing training is additional facilities, not just for firearms training, because that's only part of it. We need additional room, additional facilities to be able to bring people out there to do the training that we'd like to be able to do so that we have them able to protect themselves in the event that the worst happens. I appreciate what you are considering tonight. We support Brian Doro's plan, which, by the way, would include lead mitigation on the property completely, and hope that you'll consider this. One final comment, certainly while council that appeared here first brought up some interesting ideas with regard to restrictions, I think you'll remember that one of the problems that the city faced for many years was 2 state statutes regarding range protection and firearms uniformity laws throughout the state. It may ironically turn around and these might be the statutes you'd be able to use should you choose to further Mr. Doro's plans. Thank you, and any questions?
Great, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Who'd like to be next? The gal in the yellow.
Good evening. My name is Carol Hertzberg. I live at 507 Sanctuary Lane. I moved here about 8 years ago, shortly after my husband died. When it was obvious I was going to become a widow, I said, honey, I really want a gun for self-protection. He was very supportive of that. We took a concealed carry course together, and he helped me purchase my first gun. I quickly learned, actually from the moment I picked up the gun, you don't just buy a gun and you're done. If you want to be a responsible gun owner, you have to have ongoing training, ongoing practice. To that end, I sincerely checked out every range in the Milwaukee metro area. They vary greatly. Some are in unsafe parts of town, some are old, poor ventilation, lots of noise, no range safety officers on the firing lanes, but I also learned that there were 4 state-of-the-art ranges within the Milwaukee metro area. 2 of them are 45 minutes from here. 1 of them is 30. The one that I liked the most, unfortunately closed, and I'm sure you know that that was the WCTC range when it closed to the public. I belong to a women's shooting organization, and we shoot monthly. We have a 2-hour meeting. 1 hour is for educational in-services about gun safety, safety in the home, and an hour on the shooting range. We held our meetings for approximately 2 years at WCTC, and we were devastated when they closed. It was a state-of-the-art range. It was everything we wanted, and we felt welcomed, and most importantly, we felt safe being there. That's why I'm here tonight. Brian Doro was very instrumental in the development of that range, and he brings his expertise to the development of this one. Women are the fastest growing aggregate of new gun owners. The last 2 years, we made up almost 52% of the new gun sales across the country. And I am here to say we want a safe place to shoot. And I believe wholeheartedly that that is exactly what Brian Doro brings to us. And as a resident of this community, I highly support him, and I hope you will as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next, sir?
Hello, my name is Larry Firm, and I live at 2805 Burries Road in the city of Delafield. I'm very much in support of this project. I've known Brian for a long time, and based on what everyone has said tonight, we certainly know his honesty and integrity. One other thing, which is a little bit different, I'm also part of the City of Delafield Deer Committee. And one unintended use, we are looking for private homeowners to be able to have our deer hunters, our bow hunters, put up deer stands. And this is an area that we have targeted as a possible location for a couple deer stands. So we're very interested in the positive outcome of all of this. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, who'd like to be next? Sir with the folder.
Hi, how you doing? Hi, my name is William Lee. I live at 785 Mary Rose Court in Brookfield, in the town of Brookfield. I've known Brian Darrell for about 10 years. Firearm safety should be the #1 concern of everyone who uses a firearm. I'm a 21-year retired U.S. Air Force veteran. My job title during my career was an aircraft mechanic. I worked on everything from F-4 Phantoms to C-5 Hercules cargo planes. We mechanics had a motto. The motto was safety first. We would say to each other on our daily roll calls, safety first. This would remind us that there was nothing more important than safety. Do not compromise safety, not even for the mission. It became part of my mindset even for today. Throughout my career, I attended 8 hours of firearms quality training. This was about 4 hours of classroom time and about 4 hours of range time. And I trained on a 9mm Beretta handgun and a M16 automatic rifle. Both firearms were standard use, and even though my job didn't require me to use a weapon, I had to be trained on it. The Air Force believed that it is essential for safe and proper use of a firearm would be repetitive practice and repetitive training. The industry data and firearms background safety check shows that nearly 23 million guns were purchased in 2020, according to the Small Arms Analytical, a consulting firm out of South Carolina. That's about 65% increase in 2019, where 13 million guns were sold. The National Safety Council on their website states that in 2019, 489 preventable gun accidents occurred in the United States. And just last week, we just had a very high-profile accidental gun death. So that stresses the need for training and a place to practice your craft. I'm sorry, I don't know the new name of the gun range, but so I'll just call it the Heartland Sportsman Club, because I don't know what the new name is. I believe that this will fill this demand for a safe and proper place to practice and use firearms. Also, they will provide training and safe storage, transportation, and maintenance training for these firearms. Gun enthusiasts, hunters, and people who just want to add a sense of protection for their homes and their families will benefit from this facility. The Heartland Sportsman Center will include a staff of active and former law enforcement personnel, former military personnel and weapons experts, people who have extensive knowledge in firearms training. Having a staff of law enforcement professionals can also serve to advise participants on local and federal laws governing firearm ownership, use, and transport.
All right, I need you to wrap it up, please.
The Heartland Sportsman Center will serve as a resource for the community for all firearms-related activities. And I hope you will approve this proposal for the whatever the new name is.
Delafield Oaks Range.
Delafield Oaks Range. I had to write that over. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for your comments, sir. Who'd like to be next? Sir in the back.
Hello, everybody. John Miller, N4W30649 Maple Fields Path. I am approximately a quarter mile south of the gun range.
Is that the town? Is that
It's
the town,
It's a
sir?
Waukesha mailing
Waukesha.
address, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Brian's a nice guy. I haven't met him. Don't know who he is. We're the only subdivision on the east side of Maple. He said he went and saw the neighbors. None of my neighbors talked to him. I've been a firefighter EMT for the village of Wales since 1988. I moved to the town of Delafield in 2003. First house in the subdivision, Maple Fields Path. Maple is a scary road. There's bicycles flying up and down the road. There are cross-country skiers going up and down the road, and that's my biggest concern. And people going 50 to 100 miles up and down Maple Avenue. I was weed whacking one day, and I had the liberty of helping a lady with her brother. Died in a car accident right down the street on Mohawk and Maple. Not to say how many people go off that road, Maple, and I just think with nothing against a gun club. I'm a hunter. I shoot. You know, I used to sight my rifle in there, but I'm just afraid of more people, you know, getting hurt on Maple, which really concerns me a lot. I held traction in the backseat of this teenager's car, and she died right there. We had Flight for Life right on the corner of Bryn and Maple. And I mean, I get frustrated with the bicyclers and cross-country skiers, but you put all these people from Milwaukee, all over Waukesha, Merton, Big Bend, they're coming from everywhere to sight in, you know, at this sportsman club. And again, I'm not against that, but I'm just more afraid of what's going to happen up and down Maple Avenue. I think there's a spot for it. I just think it should be further out in the country.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else like to speak? Yes, I think it's a young lady in the back.
Hello, I'm Abby Michaelis, West 324, South 3958, Bartell Court, Genesee Depot.
What was your name again, miss?
Abby Michaelis.
Can you spell your last name?
Michaelis. I wasn't planning on speaking at all, honestly, but I think that this would, I've grown up around guns, and I think it's a great opportunity for families to like come together and be able to have that time, because that's what I grew up doing, was time with my family, and that's how I brought my family together. Me and my siblings, we all have done it. I've learned how to use a gun properly in 7th grade, and I've used one ever since. I know how to use them. And I think that with this opportunity, it would allow me to continue my training and allow a bunch of other people to be able to learn how to safely use guns and have the opportunity just to spend some quality time with family and learn how to defend themselves and just learn the safety courses. And that's all to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Mike Newman. I live at 5665 South Oxford Drive in the city of New Berlin. At the present time, I'm a firearms instructor at Waukesha County Technical College. About 12 years ago, Brian and I were on a committee and were told that we needed to design and build a range. And with that information, we decided to make the safest and the best range in the area. And we accomplished that, and I'd just like to review some of the safety protocols that I know will be moved over to this range if it gets built. One of the early things we would do, anyone who came to shoot, we would inspect their ammunition and their weapons each time. There's certain ammunition that is not good for indoor ranges. There are certain calibers that ruin the bullet traps, and we had a control over that issue. Hearing and eye protection is required. Hearing protection is not good enough. It had to be earmuffs with an NRR rating, a noise reduction rating of 30 or more. If that was not possible with their muffs, we encourage them to also use earplugs. Range safety officers, trained firearms knowledgeable people, were always in the range when civilians were shooting. All the range safety rules, the 4 major safety rules and plus the individual safety rules for the range, were strictly enforced, especially by these range safety officers. The shooting booths were bullet resistant, solid partitions, not see-through, for privacy and safety, and to eliminate any possible intimidation on new shooters or new people to the sport. Holster work was not allowed in the booths because, again, of the safety issues. That restriction would be lifted if students or customers were involved in a shooting class that instruction was being made at the time downrange from the booths. And finally, a safety item that is bigger than anyone can expect if you've had any experience shooting in any of the ranges. The biggest reason indoor ranges are shut down is because of poor air quality. And we had the best air exchanger system that money could buy. It moved the air from the rear of the range at the shooting booths downrange through a series of 3 separate size filters before that air went out back into the atmosphere.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Sir in the back? Gentleman sitting down, I think, had his hand up.
My name's Mike Neumann. I live on W317 and 641 Partridge Run, town of Delafield. I came and spoke last time in support of what Brian had to propose. I was surprised and glad that he had changed and made that adjustment based on the conversations that he's had with the neighbors. I am a neighbor. I live nearby there enough to know that I would have been hearing the shots and that kind of thing. It wouldn't have bothered me. I think everything that was said today in support of it is significant. This is something that we need. It's not just a want, it's a need in this area. There's plenty of people with guns. Anybody that has a gun has more than one, and they need to be able to be responsible with that. So that's to me is just real basic. This is something we need, and the location is really a great location, I think, for what we can do or what he can do. But it's not just Brian. He has a group of people. And I wanted to add this one thing to the conversation because I agree with everything that was said in the support, and there was some concern about, guarantees. Well, there's never a guarantee. There's no guarantee with any place that you give a permit to in this town. But this is a substantial amount of money that they're investing in Heartland. I mean, in this neighborhood, in the city of Delafield. This is substantial. And he has a plan that looks towards making that sustainability. It's not just somebody walking in and shooting their gun and walking out. That's not going to be sustainable. It has to be something that somebody wants to, as another lady had said here, that she has a club. They go, they shoot, then they have camaraderie afterwards. And I think if you start putting in and muddying up the waters with restrictions and assurances and everything that goes like that, I think the assurance is that there's a substantial amount of money that he has put in his group, and they got to get it back. And they're going to get it back through professionalism in how they run this operation, and they're going to get it back on how to keep people there to have that camaraderie and the rooms and the liquor license and all the rest of it. So I just wanted to add that part in, and I appreciate you giving me the time to talk.
Great, thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. John Schall from 130 Stocks Drive in Delafield. The last time I was here was a few months before a police officer in Delafield was shot. And I came here because the Common Council was considering eliminating a position. Thank God you haven't, and luckily the cop's doing pretty well now. This issue, in my mind, is so easy. It's a great facility, I think it will be, and we need something like this. This guy is probably going to err way on the side of being cautious and careful. I've been a cop for 25 years in Milwaukee County, and I've gone to training that he's run, and sometimes it drives me nuts. The precautions they make us take, and the old guy, the ugly old guy over there, that spoke earlier, he's part of it. I'm sure I'm going to see him at least one more time before I quit. But these are not guys that take any of this lightly, okay? I guess that's my point. And I'm not going to sit up here and talk about what my 14-year-old kid told me about what he thinks is a common use or whatever. I can tell you my 11-year-old boy would love for me to be able to take him to the range and do so safely. And that guy from Madison can talk about his kid all he wants, but I'm here, I live here, my neighbors would love it, I would love it, and I guess that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone else like to speak, sir?
Dirk Wilkin, 3325 Broken Bow Trail, one of the neighbors. And first of all, I'd like to start by thanking Brian and his team for listening to us and for putting in the effort that he talked about in terms of coming and talking to us and finding out what mattered. And the fact that he's changed his proposal from 2 outdoor ranges to indoor ranges is tremendous. And so I applaud him and thank him for that. And I speak in support of his proposal, except that I think we should still have the conditional use permit. Swimming pools are not like shooting ranges. Shops that sell weapons and ammunition are not like shoe stores. This facility is not what we have in the B6 zoning. And the idea that we should just add, oh, by the way, shooting ranges and weapons shops to B6 zoning doesn't seem to make sense. Having the shooting range makes sense. I think it's a tremendous facility, and it will be a good addition to the area, certainly an upgrade from the Heartland Sportsman's Club, but I think we need to make sure that we have the right jurisdiction and oversight. We don't want another shooting range someplace else in another B6 zone. One will be enough, and that'll be good. We just have to do it right. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else like to speak? Come on up.
Wayne Dean, 3479 Broken Bow Trail, City of Delafield, and the District 4 Alderman. I am a certified level 1 shotgun instructor with the NRA. I am a hunter safety instructor with the DNR. I founded the shooting team for Kettle Moraine and the state championship team that they now have. I also founded the University of Wisconsin whitewater shooting team. I proudly carry my concealed carry card. I'm certainly in support of the Second Amendment. I'm in support of an indoor safe shooting range. I think he can do a great job of having a range for us that is safe and an asset to the community. What I need to warn you guys about is this. 895.527 is the act that the state passed and says that an existing shooting range that does not operate under a CUP can operate from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. It also says that it is a shooting range. It does not delineate between an outdoor range and an indoor range. The reason you need to have a CUP is so that the city can have some institutional control over this range. I predict that if you allow an accepted use without a CUP, future owners could come back and try and use 895 and say, we can open up a range, because now you do not have any institutional control. Now, I'm not clairvoyant, but in 1998, I sat before the Common Council and the Plan Commission and said, please do not annex this property from the town. It is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Years later, we have lawsuits. The city spent tons of money. 2003, I said the HSE is not operating under the CUP. It is unsafe, and they wanted to extend their hours from 34 to 84 and said under 895, they're allowed to operate without forming a citizen committee that was part of the original CUP. What came out of that was that all changes to a CUP, the city policy are considered major, not minor. So all changes to a CUP must require a public hearing and some citizen input. If you allow this to be considered an accepted use, now the citizens don't have any right to come in a public hearing. I predicted April 2010, someone was going to get shot. This was an unsafe shooting range, and it shouldn't have been in this area. The next day, a pregnant woman was shot. Many people called me and said, oh my God, how did you know? Here's what I felt that when I heard that. I didn't do enough to stop this. When I sat back here and listened to all these people talk, I wasn't going to say anything until I realized I can't be quiet. We need to have institutional control. Let's have a CUP where the city has some rights to control hours of operation and make sure that it's safe. If we consider this a bowling alley, we don't have that control anymore. So please make a motion to require a CUP. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back. Okay. He thinks you were first.
Hi, my name is Bill Otto. I live at N18W29913 Crooked Creek Road in the town of Delafield. I lived in the city of Delafield for 20 years, and for almost 7.5 years I was on the Plan Commission, so I understand the multiple perspectives that you have to deal with when you're in the city. One thing I want to encourage all of you to do is to review your comprehensive plan that was drafted by Yagi Colby, who obviously in the backyard of that engineering firm is the Heartland Gun Club. So they bring a unique perspective, I think, to this issue. But I think if you review that plan and the comprehensive plan prior to that, nowhere in that plan does it bring up the fact that it's inappropriate use for the city, or that there are no citizen comments when the survey was done that said we're against the plan. In fact, the plan says we want to make the opportunity available for a wide selection of our citizens here for a lot of recreational activities within the city. I think the other thing that I know tonight, tragic, the Maple Avenue between Delafield and Wales is a narrow, beautifully heavily wooded and sometimes crooked street road, and there have been some tragic accidents there, and it breaks your heart when you hear those things happening. However, you have the traffic studies. When I lived in the city of Delafield, when I first moved here, there were no traffic lights on Highway 83. When it was approved for Target to come in, I decided to leave the city over the density issues and the congestion. The rallying cry of the citizens at that time was, don't let 83 and 94 look like Barker and Blue Mountain. So I understand the issues of congestion and concerns about traffic, but you know the density issues and the attractiveness to the community in terms of the density issues are already here with a lot of your other developments that have been allowed in the city. I don't think the density issue with the gun club is going to be one. When it comes to 14-year-old children, I've been involved in the Boy Scouts for a long, long time, and the gun club serves a very viable purpose for those young men and women to give them the opportunity to experience either shotgun shooting or pistol or rifle shooting and do it in a controlled and responsible way, and give them that opportunity to learn a skill that they otherwise might not have the opportunity to experience. So appreciate your thoughts and your concerns. I think the other thing that when you look at the current zoning, if my recall is correct, you have a lot of latitude with the current zoning, the way it is there. Okay, and I think the other issue is all the comments in terms of if this is going to get done, it's going to get done right. And I know from prior experiences with the WCTC range, it was done right. And I know it'll be even better than that facility. So thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Sir?
My name is Mike Southard, and my address is West 302, North 898 Maple Avenue in the town of Delafield. I butt up to Heartland Sportsman's Club. We have since the beginning of Heartland Sportsman's Club. I want Brian to know that this is not something that anybody is pointing their fingers against him as a person. This is something that the city annexed, let the gun club annex to the city. They knew that there were 3 major problems with that gun club when they annexed them. The residents knew it. And Brian, I'm sure you knew this when you started your whole project. Yes, you have accommodated 2 of the 3, but you neglected to bring up the 3rd one, and you know about it. And that's the environmental impact of that property. Now, my question to you is, anywhere on any of the paperwork to you, does it say anything about the environmental impact? The lead, which was brought up, the amount of tires that are back there. You no longer are having an outdoor range. What's going to happen with that? That's why we need the conditional use permit, so that the city can step in and they can do this right. You have one chance to clean up a property that everybody knew was a bad property to begin with. Now, Brian, as far as your facility is concerned, I think it's beautiful. I think you've done a nice job with that. I think you're getting to the point where you're going to cross the finish line. Work with us. Cross the finish line. When you're done with this property, I want this property to be top shelf, first class. It's the first of something like this in the whole area. Okay? You are going to be getting people from all over in here to look at this and say, wow, look what the city of Delafield, the residents in the area, and the owner of the property can accomplish in a city for a gun club, okay? But you still need to have control over what is being done. Your hours went from 30-some to 90-some. Again, that is where a conditional use permit is going to help regulate between the city, the neighbors, and you, okay? I want this facility to succeed, okay? I don't want it to be like a Foxconn, where you're offered a penthouse and you got the doghouse.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Sure, come on up.
My name is Cheryl Schwitz. I live at West 302 North 985 Maple Avenue. My property is adjacent to the driveway he's got there. Now, if we're talking all these hours and all these people, I will never get off my driveway. And all these people are saying how wonderful it is that's from not around here, well, why don't they put it in their backyard or next to their driveway where they have to put up with the traffic and all the lights from the parking lots? Is he going to have them pushed the right way so they're not blinding me in the house? stuff like that all has to be. So I think we do need that conditional permit so that we have some say in some of that stuff and how it's going to be done, and make sure that it's cleaned up right. Make sure that the lights aren't in my face all the time, and control that traffic a little. If you're gonna be open from 6 till 11 at night, every night, I'll never even be able to get out of my driveway. There will be constant people. That road is not built for people to come in and out of. There's that hill right there. You're gonna have a lot of car accidents, I think, there. I really do. Because they drive so fast, now you've got 15, 20 people trying to get out at one time. You can't see over that hill. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think I saw one more person that wanted to speak. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Victoria Challoner, 1407 North Breezeland in the village of Summit. I am here because I think this is a fabulous idea. For the record, I don't know Brian. I've never met him in my life. However, I have been to WCTC, and I really did appreciate the safety measures that they had there. I had been to a few other shooting ranges where there was no range officer. They didn't really care what you did there. You could walk in and do whatever you want, and I was very uncomfortable there. The lady in yellow, I echo a lot of things that she said. My husband and I both have our concealed carry licenses, and we got them because 2 weeks after my daughter started college, one of our old neighbors showed up on her college campus and was stalking her. Excuse me. And it was very upsetting. And it took a long time to get through that. We had help from the campus officers and stuff, and he was banned from the college. Shortly after she came home for the summer, he showed up in our neighborhood again, and we ended up having to get a restraining order against him. He was trespassing on the property and stuff, and so I believe that after getting my concealed carry license, I felt better, but just like she said, just getting the license, it can't end there. We need to be comfortable using our firearms. We need to be able to be confident in situational training. So I believe this is a really good thing for this community. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? Sir?
My name is Brian Southard, W302 and 664 Bryn Drive, town of Delafield. My daughter's 7 years old. She would think it would be pretty cool to go shoot there with me. She also would probably say that it's not similar to a movie theater or to a gym. I would love to take her there. But if you give up the CUP, that gives up your backbone. That gives up the people that are directly impacted by it, residential neighbors that are pretty much without any kind of voice going forward. The changes to the indoor, that's phenomenal. The hours, originally at the first meeting, it said 30 hours a week. That's gone up to 78 for the shooting ranges, 90-something overall. Venue area that looks like it's more than just going there to shoot and then have a drink or two. It looks like a full-on whatever kind of event venues you want in half of the building, open till midnight on the weekends, that kind of stuff. If without a CUP, there's not really any kind of backbone for neighbors that are going to have cars going in and out at midnight, or if there's noise issues or any of that kind of stuff. I'm for the stuff, but if all of a sudden the people that are directly impacted, which there's a good majority that aren't in the city of Delafield, don't have any kind of way to come back and say, hey, these are issues that we are having in the future, it sort of screws everybody that's impacted by it. And everybody that's outside of the area that's here, that's great. Like, most of the people are for it now that are next to it, but it's having that little bit of control or say if there's things that go wrong in the future that you can come back to and figure out a way to work together and deal with that. If it goes under, or if he sells it, or anything that happens, there's no guarantees who's owning it in 5 years, 10 years. And I understand like he's doing it, putting a lot of money into it. This is something that he's proud of, but he might not be there in the future while the neighbors there will still be there forever. So,
Great. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none?
Nope, there's one guy.
One
Oh,
more.
behind the pole. Come on up.
Damian Verts, 211 Corby Drive. I don't know Brian, never met him before. The reason I'm here is I'm the head coach of the Kettle Moraine Lasers shooting team, current coach. And what I don't hear is anybody talking about the youth involved. Right now, youth shooting sports is the largest growing sport in the nation, something that people don't talk about. We're always looking for facilities like Brian's for our kids to shoot at. I have kids, I have 69 kids currently on my team that are shooting from ages 12 to 18 years old. And we're always looking for good facilities, good instructors, good places for our kids to shoot at. And I don't think I heard anybody in here talking about the youth and what the youth can do for us right now. So I'd just like to say that I think it's a great idea for our youth and growing the sport right now. So thank you guys.
Great, thank you for your comments. All righty, anybody else? Seeing none.
Oh, you got one?
I got one?
No, I'm just,
It was
we want to make sure
25. I
there's
was
nobody,
hoping for just 25.
nobody on
Now it's
Zoom.
gonna be 26.
Just one last time.
Even though.
Come on up.
I'd like 20 minutes, is that okay?
No. You promised me one.
Brian Jost, N8 W3043524 Cherokee Trail. Pro Gun Club, I think this thing is awesome, but I think you need to do it under CUP. The comparison to a bowling alley or a pool is ridiculous. There's no ordinance in your statutes that I'm aware of that prohibits those exclusively in the city. So the lawmakers of the city have already said shooting is not the same. So you're basically violating your own rules and laws by putting it into this with CUP. I mean, the only way you can do it is a CUP to protect the neighbors. And so I'm very pro this project. I think it's awesome. Love to shoot there. But it should be done under CUP to keep everybody happy and give you guys the control you need for something that you've already said is unsafe by law.
All right, thank you for the comments. All right. Oh, no, my gosh. Come on up. You got a lot, any other shy people out there?
Good evening. My name is Christopher Campbell. I'm a resident of Pewaukee. I'm a 28-year veteran and retired from Menominee Falls Police Department. I worked full-time for Brian at WCTC.
Hold on a moment, sir. Can I get your address?
Sure. West 275, North 2469, Heather Lane in Pewaukee. Just want to make a comment that Brian's exposure to the WCTC range and how he worked through political processes to make safety come first, and how he was able to amend and modify his ideas to create a safety-first platform and involve so many veteran police officers who have distinguished careers and are very invested in public safety. Right in our own backyard, we had the Delafield and Heartland officers shot by an assailant recently. Many of us choose to either keep a CCW or something called a HR 218, which is an expanded CCW for retired or active police active. At this point, our training options are not what they need to be. And I need to tell you that let's not turn our back on the fact that Brian is a 14-plus year educator at WCTC. So my direct experience with him was as an overseer of my student criminal justice club, where I would take rookie shooters, many rookie shooters, and essentially make certain that they were safe. So through the auspices of Chief Newman and his associates, we were amazingly safe. In fact, on campus at WCTC, some of the safety and security people had real questions about why we're letting rookie shooters who are college age, quote unquote, play with guns. Well, the structure and the training and the education was just excellent. And I'm sensitive to the neighbors' concerns. This is a great area. I lived east side for a long time before I moved west. But I can tell you that if Brian needs a lighting engineer, he'll network and find someone. In fact, I am mindful of someone who I umpire with who's excellent, who would probably do a fine job, and certainly keep any light spillage diminished for neighbors. If there's a traffic study that needs to be done, Brian would certainly work with the council and the sheriff's department and the state patrol and state DOT traffic engineers to come up with a good solution. As we all know, county roads are sometimes very hazardous because people are used to being 10 or 15 over and their schedule is suddenly more important than the people around them. He will be very sensitive to that feedback. I can tell you with certainty that there are 3 or 4 specific issues in the creation of WCTC's range where I was not a firearms instructor, but I was a full-time educator, and said, Brian, I have these concerns. And within 3 to 5 days, they were raised to his committee and raised to his trainers, and an answer was received. So his responsiveness, the fact that he is a true patriot, the fact that he wants to bring a destination feature to Delafield, but I'm sure he'll be sensitive to crowding issues where he would be open to restricting party numbers, or where he would be open to restricting number of memberships or things on that order to satisfy all the parties involved. There is definitely a need here. He is a right person to do it. He will be responsive to the needs of the community. And again, I stand in support of the concept, and I thank the council for taking the due diligence and feedback approach to this issue, because it's important to everyone in the room. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Okay, we will move on to number 10, unfinished business. DELC 0825994-701 Maple Avenue, owner Heartland Sports Club, applicant Brian Doro. Applicant is requesting consideration and action on a request that an indoor gun range be considered similar use to the use specified in the B6 Commercial Holding District. No outdoor gun ranges are proposed. Does the applicant come up? All right, Amy, you want to give us an overview?
Sure. So as you all know, this property is currently subject to a conditional use permit for an outdoor range. And hold on here, I'm going to share my screen again. And that conditional use is non-transferable currently. It is approved as part of a lawsuit that has been settled. So because of that, he would need to, if you stuck with the conditional use, you would need to amend the conditional use to make it transferable, and you can place conditions on it accordingly. You could also amend the conditions that are associated with that CU related to the outdoor range pieces of it. Other than amending the conditional use, so there's currently nothing written in the city's ordinance that specifically allows a new range through a conditional use process. So really the opportunity through a conditional use is limited to the fact that there happens to be one on this particular property. So I want to remind everyone of that. And the applicant, as he's stated, is proposing an indoor shooting range only. He is also willing to terminate the conditional use that exists and terminate future outdoor range use. So therefore, the ability to go back to the conditional use that's been approved would no longer be available to him or any other future owner, unless, of course, the code is amended to allow it. He's also proposing complementary uses that would include the training and educational courses, retail, clubhouse, and event area. Those complementary uses in themselves are permitted by right when they're unrelated to the use of the gun specifically. He would also need a site plan and business plan of operation regardless. So I heard a lot of comments tonight about a conditional use versus permitted use by right, and not having the ability to review site components such as traffic, lighting, noise. Regardless of the process, any business operation is required, and I'm more speaking to the audience, not the Plan Commission. I know you're aware of this, but any application is required to come to the Plan Commission for review and approval, and they can condition the approval specific to the issues that are raised and that relate to the site specifically. So the big difference is that if it's permitted by right, there wouldn't be that public hearing piece to it. Of course, everyone's invited to attend any meeting, but there wouldn't be the notice that's written in the paper each time he makes an amendment and/or sent to neighbors within 300 feet of the property. So that's really the big change. Otherwise, you can tighten it up with conditions either way. We have many standard conditions that relate to site plan approval. So we're not doing a detailed review of his proposal, although he did submit a packet of information. Right now, we're just deciding on the process, and then we will do that detailed review at a later date. So the recommendation here is for you to provide a recommendation to the Common Council regarding the use being designated as permitted by right. And just going back, the reason why you have the ability to do that is in the B6 district, there is a section that states other permitted uses may be allowed if determined by the Plan Commission to be substantially similar to the above and subject to approval by the Common Council. So it doesn't have to be necessarily written exactly indoor ranges in order to use that provision. The applicant is making the argument that it's similar to many uses in the code, and probably most commonly the bowling alleys, gymnasiums, swimming pools, skating rinks, indoor tennis courts, so on, more the entertainment type uses. So, but if you do call it a similar use, that is a recommendation to the council. So whether you recommend approval or denial as a similar use, it's still going to go to the Common Council probably on November 1st, this coming Monday, for them to make that final decision, and they can go with your recommendation or against it. If you determine that it's not permitted by right use or should not be a permitted by right use, then you could move forward and schedule a public hearing for a conditional use for the November meeting. The city attorney and I have discussed the applicant's proposal, and we do recommend that if you decide that it should be a permitted by right use, that a text amendment be prepared in order to button the restrictions a little bit further in the future. Calling it similar might open it up for future interpretation, and the uses may be expanded, and it may also set a precedent for other people using that similar use provision a little bit more broadly. Yeah. If we do consider a text amendment, we can decide whether or not you want to schedule that hearing for November right away, or bring the text proposal to you in November and then schedule it for the December meeting, which you may need to do because of the council meeting on November 1st. Because our meeting is November 17th, we have a really tight notice time frame. But a couple of the conditions that the city attorney is recommending is that you could add, if you do a text amendment, not if you call it a similar use, we have to use the ordinance as it's written today. But if you go through a text amendment, you could restrict it to B6 properties only. You could restrict it to indoor ranges only, so the code would still prohibit outdoor ranges altogether. You could add a condition that it has to be designed and operated so sound isn't disseminated from the building. You could require that the applicant has to terminate all rights to any conditional use related to the outdoor range. And you could also, if you want to limit it to this property in particular, since it already has been used as a range, but you don't want to offer it to other properties in the city, You could put in a provision similar to the use is only allowed on properties more than 20 acres and less than 35 acres or something like that. I mean, that might not be exactly what we go with, but that essentially eliminates all the other B6 properties in the city and limits it to this property. So you do have some decisions to make, and we can go through that again. Essentially, if you want to recommend a permitted use, you need to decide whether or not it's similar to the existing uses in B6 or whether or not you want us to bring back text amendments for the November meeting. If you want to require a conditional use permit, we can amend the existing conditional use so that it is transferable. I guess the one thing there is there's a lot of conditions in there that are tied to the existing site conditions, and we would have to do a lot of redlining to the conditional use document. So alternatively, we could again bring text amendments to create a conditional use section, which would also give us the opportunity to put a bunch of restrictions to limit where it can occur. So hopefully that makes sense. And then we will be bringing back, no matter what, he needs business plan of operation and site plan approval to look at the specifics, and we will look at traffic, parking, noise, lighting, signage, stormwater management will be reviewed. So there's a lot to look at.
Okay. Applicant's turn.
Thank you. So as I did my research in the B zone, B6 zone, there are 52 entities listed. And I know some of folks that took the mic, I'm not saying it's identical to, a bowling alley, gymnasium. What my argument is, the components of what I'm seeking, the training, the retail, I mean, those are all permitted uses. And so that's why I would like to be considered for permitted use by right. I'm not here to, again, I've been transparent from day one. I'm not here to circumvent any process or anything like that. I'm just looking for the reassurances. I mean, you heard from some of the speakers, this and that and all the other things. And again, I'm going to be transparent. I'm not saying sweeping anything under the carpet or trying to disguise anything. Again, I just want, as we're looking to invest a lot of money into this property and done the right way, I think I just looking for the reassurances, because I made the concessions that were the complaints, that the noise, the safety, everything else. And so I'm just looking for those reassurances. And the way I looked at it, it's similar. It can be looked at it very similar to what is permitted by right in that area.
Amy, under the text amendment route, I guess controlling hours of operation, would that be under the business plan of operations?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could.
So if he wanted to change his hours, he'd have to come in?
He'd have to come in.
If we wanted to change hours?
So a couple things. One, he's going to propose hours of operation, and you'll have to review and approve that as part of his business plan of operation. If you want to restrict a gun club in general related to hours of operation, you could add that to the text, but then just know if there's any tweaking, if somebody wants to stay open for a half an hour or do something a little bit differently, then it's in the text and you'd have to amend the text again. But it is an option. I mean, you can tighten it up.
But typically that's covered with the business plan of operation.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about.
Well, it's, I know Amy gives a long explanation here, but the first choice, is it a similar use or is it not? If you think it is, then that's a path we can head down and schedule the public hearing. If you think it should be, the wording isn't quite there to be a similar use and you want to see it move forward, then do the text amendment.
Now, if we go there.
Those are the two most obvious choices that cover all the things that we would typically cover with an applicant.
With the text amendment, can we restrict it to just this B6 area?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is to describe limitations that would ultimately limit it to this property. I mean, you don't want to say it's limited to the address on Maple Avenue, but you can certainly limit it based on size and other criteria.
And in B6.
Definitely in B6. So you can, every district has a list of permitted uses, and you can certainly only put indoor gun ranges in B6.
Is this our largest B6 in the
Yep.
city?
I believe the second largest B6 property is Village Square, which is 13 acres. But we will definitely verify that if.
And we don't create B6 out of nowhere. So
Right,
there'd
I
be
mean,
a-
and that's
yeah.
something, you know, on future rezones, you'll want to think about that. You know, if you're going to rezone it to B6, what does that mean?
How large is this parcel?
34 acres.
So if there was a restriction as far as needing a minimum size for a indoor shooting range in the city via text amendment, it would restrict future subdivisions of the property for other business uses.
Yeah, so you'll want to think about that, whether or not you want to, how tightly you want to restrict that, because, so he could split off or transfer some lands if it says no less than 20 acres, no more than 35. But it wouldn't allow him to create a small little circle around the site.
If part of your business plan was to have this as kind of an anchor for a future development for a business park or something else, which would be perfectly reasonable for the size of property it is based on the allowable uses in B6 with all that land. Having a restriction to limit an indoor gun range to a certain size acreage would eliminate the possibility of the type of development some of the neighbors had concern over as far as the type of traffic and other things that would be allowable, like restaurants and clinics, hotels, multifamily
Could they
buildings.
put storage units there?
Right, but
Well,
so.
remember,
but-
any of those things would have to come back to us. for
Right, no,
approval.
but even if, but so I'm just saying that if it was codified that you needed 20 acres to have an indoor range, you couldn't add a whole bunch of other business uses that would increase the intensity of it without changing the code.
That's right. So the attorney and I did talk
Right?
about that, and if you don't want to restrict it based on lot size, I mean, you don't have to. That's a recommendation for you to consider.
I don't know if
but,
that's I'm just I'm curious if that's a concern of yours.
Yeah,
if that
I
would,
don't want to restrict it to lot size. I mean, I don't have a master plan for the property, but there's 35 acres there. Things could change in the future.
I understand.
So what you might want to think about is whether or not you want to restrict it to this property. Because if that's not your goal, then that's not necessary altogether. If it is your goal, then we can look at other opportunities for restricting it to this property.
So the text amendment would just specify this parcel, this B6 parcel.
Well, we don't like to say the
No.
address, right? But you have provisions in place that would be limiting.
The text amendment would be to list indoor gun ranges as an allowable use, and then you can add one or two other qualifiers that you think might be needed to restrict it going to other places or maybe places you wouldn't want it to go. But if you want to go down that path, then we have to basically go through the process of adding it to the list, and then we can add in that process whatever you would particularly want. The applicant doesn't, is certainly not advocating for an acreage limitation.
And we can talk about more options at the next meeting. I think the most important thing for this meeting is to determine.
Is it similar?
Is it similar,
Do we need
or
to
is
add
it
it
a
to the
text
list?
amendment?
Well, so what they say that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and the cat hates all of them. But the idea that once they've demonstrated the desire to just bring it all inside, I think it is substantially similar. I mean, I don't see much of a difference between this and some of the other uses that are listed. I know in one of the letters we received from an attorney, he mentioned just the highly regulated aspects of just guns in general, but we have that in all sorts of uses in B6, like nursing home, I'm not nursing homes, but like funeral homes or anything to do with medical. I mean, these people are highly licensed and certified and regulated by the state. Even hairstylists and manicurists are. So I mean, there's a lot of uses that have lots of regulations that go well beyond our code, that just because they're not specifically denoted in our municipal code doesn't mean that we have to think of all of them to determine that it's a similar use for a particular site. But I'm concerned about the restriction of confirming and eliminating the possibility that it could be construed as being open for an outdoor shooting. And I think that the text amendment would be the right way to do that, personally.
By specifically listing it as indoor only.
And I think that as long as it's inside, and that we're restricting, that we're treating this like any other business, like a bowling alley or anything that would have a pay-per-use type of a business plan, where there'd be commercials and retail sales. I mean, someone else brought up guns and ammo, but I mean, I don't know where Walmart is these days, but I mean, Fleet Farm, and there's people that sell ammunition and guns all over the place.
Walmart as well.
Yeah, and they're right around the corner. But so I don't see that as different in a significant way. So anyway, I think the text amendment is the appropriate way to go. And I mean, I think the B6 only makes sense. And I think limiting it to indoor ranges only. And I know that in our shooting range, in our code about where shooting of a firearm is prohibited, there's clearly an exception for things that are approved by the Common Council. I mean, it's a very simple line that says, except for where a supervised gun range is approved by the Common Council, and that'd be part of this process, right? And the sound thing, I think, would be that'd be any business, right? I mean, we'd be thinking about that impact.
Yeah.
If it was a tool and die shop that had their doors open, when it was hot in summer, you get a similar complaint. More complaints than if it was an indoor shooting range.
No. I work at a tool and die shop. We're not that loud. We're not a foundry.
No, but I mean, if you open your doors, you can't open the doors on this plan.
No.
It just seems like all of these things match our list of conditional use permit. Either way we go, text amendment or conditional use amendment, we're going to require a public hearing, correct?
Right.
Either way, and it seems like we're going through a lot of wordsmithing to make a text amendment work. Personally, I'm leaning towards a conditional use amendment.
I don't want to
I
speak.
feel like the majority of our developments come in here under conditional use permits. Am I wrong?
Well, a couple things with conditional uses. I don't want to speak on behalf of the applicant, but I think in talking to him, one of the concerns is maybe not the conditional use on this front end, but then every amendment that he proposes to, let's say it is hours of operation or lighting or a site plan adjustment would need to come back for a conditional use amendment, which requires the public hearing versus.
Which all of our conditional use permits
Right,
have.
but I think that's one of the goals of the applicant is to avoid that particular process. The other thing with conditional uses is, as we've talked about in recent cases, the law has changed and it's pretty restrictive. And so, if you allow ranges through a conditional use moving forward in general, you probably still want to do a text amendment to have specific provisions. You do have the ability to amend that existing conditional use, which would still keep things really tight. It's just, I think that's going to result in some very significant amendments to the conditional use, which we can work through if that's the route you want to go. But the major difference is the public hearing for all future amendments.
I mean, I'm in favor. I like it very much, but we've always talked about having some control with conditional use permits. And I guess that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Maybe
We do have
because we
control
haven't
through
done this
a
before.
text amendment as well. The only thing that's different is the public hearing process. And much more complicated thing to set up. Right? Much more
Do it with
complicated to
most
set
of our
up.
developments.
I know you look at similarities, and there are some similarities, but there's some significant differences, and it's subjective to I think even you can read it and see how it applies to this exact project. And I think a text amendment route probably for both sides. You know, we go down that avenue, and it's probably going to be something that we can put together that's going to allow this to move forward, and plus give some kind of a grip that the city can come and say, you know, this is what we need to make sure that everything is being done right. It just seems, from perspective of what I'm hearing, I don't see it being a failure on, you know, you may not be getting exactly or whatever. It's kind of a common ground that could work well going forward on this. You know, looking at noise issues, you know, obviously, or hours or something that, you know, could be put together to allow this to, you know, become a really good development.
Bob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm favoring the text amendment also. I just think if we write it with eliminating the outdoor range and adding in the soundproof, which is going to be part of it, and it may be something around some of the environmental, as somebody mentioned, the smoke that rises, just how it gets filtered before it leaves the building. And then maybe we have a certain, so it's not a really small size B6 closer to the city, but things that are a little larger, just put a little size limit that it can't be smaller than a small B6. And I think we have, then the next step is actually the business plan. Then we get our chance again to fine tune it with everybody. So that's kind of my thought.
Laura?
I appreciate Tim's explanation of the text amendment, and I kind of am going in that direction also. It just seems like either way we can limit this, and this seems like a easier and course to go is with the text amendment. Not only for them, but for the city too, because we can put all those restrictions in there. So.
Tim, any other comments?
No, I mean, so you'd be taking this feedback and suggesting text amendments for us to work through at our next meeting. Is what
And the city
makes
attorney
sense.
and Amy would work on that.
Yeah.
Bring us some suggestions based on the
Like I said,
feedback you've given today.
I just think pulling it inside makes all the difference in the world. That's all I heard from this when we go back the 13 years
Yeah.
to when the CUP was rescinded by the city. It seems like the whole thing and the reapplication process and everything was about safety and noise.
Yeah.
And I mean, and so pulling those, taking all that internal to into the operation. You don't have to go in there if you don't like the noise, and you don't have to go in there if you don't think it's safe. When you're outside of it, you're outside of it, and that's like any other business. You don't have to go into it. You're not unreasonably exposed to something when it's inside and underground.
Yeah, and I think one thing we should add too is professionally trained or certified staff, and there's got to be a certain type of certification that would be required for this type of thing. So that we could recommend that is a requirement of any indoor range that would be allowed in the city.
Okay. All right, anybody feel eager enough to craft a motion?
So, and just right now, your recommendation is to the Common Council regarding it being a similar use. So I would recommend, if you want the text amendment to say that that you don't recommend that the use be considered similar, but rather you recommend staff draft text amendments to accommodate the use as a permitted use by right with conditions.
Wow.
Is that might have been babbling, but.
No, I'm just saying you just made it maybe easy for somebody.
Okay, make a recommendation to Common Council to draft a text amendment. Is that what we're asking them?
To deny the request that an indoor gun range be considered a similar use.
A similar use.
But that you recommend staff draft text amendment
Okay.
for consideration at the next Plan Commission meeting.
So to recommend to staff to draft a text amendment for the next meeting.
And, I mean, would you want to schedule?
Schedule the public
So
hearing?
the only way you can schedule a public hearing is if the applicant decides to not even take it to the council and move forward with the text amendment. But it probably is worth going to common council because then you know whether or not they support the text amendment, otherwise you're wasting your time. So I think you go to council, come back here in November for text amendment consideration, and if everybody likes it, then the public hearing is scheduled for December. Is that? Those are my thoughts and off the cuff.
Okay, Molly, do you have the motion?
Motion by Schultz, I don't even know a second yet, to recommend to the common council to deny the request that an indoor gun range be considered a similar use to other uses specified in the B6 Commercial Holding District, but to recommend that staff create draft text amendments for consideration at the next Plan Commission meeting.
Could you go back to where you mentioned the range itself? We're denying an outdoor range?
That the indoor
Denying
gun
the
range.
application.
Oh, denying the application, okay.
As
Be
the
considered
request
a
that it's an
similar
indoor
use.
use.
All right.
And the text amendments being drafted by staff are to allow the use by a permitted by right, subject to conditions. Just so it's
Yeah,
clear,
that's
the
important.
text amendments aren't for conditional use or something.
That the staff create draft text amendments for
That's a
consideration
mouthful.
to allow the use to be permitted by right?
Right.
With conditions.
With
By
conditions.
right, with conditions.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? I have a question. So are we saying we would go ahead and schedule a public hearing for the next planning commission meeting? Or do we lose 2 months by not doing that? Or
Well, he needs to go to common council on Monday, and because the meeting is on the 17th of November, I was thinking about this today, it has to be noticed in the paper by like Friday or Monday, and the meeting's on Monday. So I just don't think it does not work timing-wise.
So at our next meeting, we'll recommend a.
so then we
public
wouldn't be
hearing.
able to schedule the public hearing until the December meeting? Then,
You could schedule the hearing for December and make a recommendation in December, and then it would be on the common council meeting in January.
okay.
Then you have to come back and get your site plan and business plan of operation approval.
And just one more time, please, the reason we can't schedule the public hearing, basically you're saying the planning commission would be doing it in anticipation of the council's approval and we don't want to do that? Or if the council didn't approve what was
It's-
recommended, then we just cancel it?
Well, so we have to know, because the meeting's on the 17th, we have to notice it before the council can even act. So, I mean, you're really
Well, so
presuming.
that's what I'm just trying to understand.
You have
So
to act.
We'd be
So,
scheduling it in anticipation of
yeah.
their, okay.
And then, I mean, the applicant could forego his request to call it a similar use and go ahead and schedule the hearing, but, you know, then you might be going through the process without getting an idea of how the council feels. That's up, I mean, that's
Okay
up
with
to
that?
you.
Yeah. Work for
To-
everybody?
To go to the council and then schedule the hearing.
All right. That was my discussion. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstentions? Passes. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you at the council meeting. Okay, we will move on to number B, DELC 07930211001 and DELC 0793021. 705 Genesee Street, DLC 079302003, 524 Milwaukee Street, owner 705 Genesee Street LLC and Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC, applicant Hendricks Commercial Properties. Applicant is requesting amend the site plan for 705 Genesee Street that was approved in April of 2020 to accommodate emergency access via adjacent property to the north. Applicant is also requesting that Planning Commission recommend approval to the Common Council of a cross-access and emergency access easement. Is the applicant here? For all those who are left, thank you for your patience and going through all of that. So Amy, can you kick us off here, please?
Okay, so we're talking about the Hendricks property at 705 Genesee Street. They are moving forward with their application requests and getting their final plans together. So just as a reminder, in April of 2020, the applicant received approval for 2 4-story commercial buildings on the property with retail on the first floor and office space above, and there'll also be below grade and surface parking. As part of that, the parking lot along Main Street was going to accommodate fire access equipment, but that has been determined to be excessively expensive. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's related to the underground parking lot and the type of material that's required to make it stable. And so they're proposing to access the site from the north property instead, which they also happen to own right now. In order to do that, the city is, asking for an easement so that accessible area and type of construction is preserved in perpetuity for the site. And so this plan is really hard to read, but essentially there's a little curb and gutter relocation along Milwaukee Street. Here, I'm putting my cursor on an area that enters the below ground parking area as well. There is a parking space where I have my cursor that we would also like to have removed from the site plan because it may potentially be a conflict if there was a fire truck in the way or the fire truck might not be able to park. And then they are also proposing to remove 3 more parking spaces to the east. And then there is a access path or a driveway that goes from Dopkins to this area that then goes to the below ground parking. They would also be reconstructing a curb there, or moving, widening the driveway, I think. Are you actually widening the physical driveway?
Yeah.
That area happens to have some kind of water quality swale component to it right now, and so the applicant does need to submit calculations to the engineer to make sure that that's not negatively affected as part of this proposal. But it is my understanding from city staff that both access points are required for this fire equipment access. Therefore, an easement that's been drafted that includes a legal description, I think it's in here, would need to be amended to include the path to Dopkins. So this original legal description was described for trash pickup because the trash is below grade as well. So that can be maintained. They're using the same physical space for the fire equipment, but they would need to extend the easement to Dopkins to make sure they don't ever narrow the drive access. Now, the applicant had mentioned today that they thought the fire department didn't need the 2 access points. So in the recommended conditions, I state that the easement legal description and the easement document itself needs to be reviewed and approved by the administrator, planner, attorney, and fire chief, and that the legal description needs to be updated. I mean, we can say that the easement area, it says the easement area will also need to be increased to include the access from Dopkins Street. You could add if required by the fire department so we can have that further conversation. But what else did I want to state? Oh, and then I guess just so you know, it's not really part of this approval. There was originally approved a trash enclosure on the property to the north that was being relocated for that property. They're not going to install it right away. They're going to just use the trash enclosure in the lower level, which is great. It keeps more stuff off the surface. But they are going to keep it on the plans in case they want to construct it at a future date. So it may be constructed at some point. And then they have a private easement regarding that. So my recommendation is to recommend approval to council of the proposed cross-access and emergency access easement upon final review of the city attorney, city planner, city administrator, and fire chief. So approval would need to be obtained before going to council. And then I've got at a minimum, emergency vehicle use shall be added to the third whereas clause in the second agreement statement, and with approval from the city of Delafield and Lake Country, fire and rescue shall be added to the end of the second agreement statement. Additional language requiring city approval for any modifications to the document may be required. I guess long story short there is we're just going to do a final review. There's going to be some text amendments required.
Okay.
And then it says the easement area will also need to be increased to include the access from Dobkin Street. You can add if required by the fire department. And then as a second recommendation, approve the amended site plan subject to an approved cross-access and emergency access easement being recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds and subject to city engineer approval of revised stormwater calculations that verify that existing stormwater BMPs have been properly mitigated. The parking stall in the southwest corner adjacent to the reconstructed curb and gutter at the entrance to 705 shall be removed. That's that one stall that I was talking about. One more condition I just want to make sure is clear, and you may want to put in your motion, that all other site plan elements from previous approvals remain in place. This approval is really intended to just accommodate the fire emergency access. We didn't do a full review of the whole site plan.
If I put my
I couldn't write that fast.
public works hat on,
It's in here.
I'm still writing.
should we have the city engineer, I'm thinking, look at the water part of it, but also turning radiuses?
We can.
I don't know if the fire, do they check?
They had a meeting on all this.
The fire department did approve the proposal.
Doesn't mean we can't
But
double
we
check,
can.
but I just so you know.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing to do, is double check. I know we talked about turning radiuses before at Public Works with this. But with that change coming in, I don't know if the fire truck is just coming straight down and backing out, or?
If I could?
Sure.
Yeah. So the fire department.
If you guys could give us your name and
Yeah,
address,
Paul
please.
Mackel here and Ari Smith, civil engineer.
Okay.
Kevin Piskey, Hendricks Commercial Properties owner.
So we met with the fire department out there and they'd asked that we run the turn templates to them. So we did, and they just want to be able to pull in and they'll back out. So there's no
Okay.
expectations they'd make the turn because it's just too tight.
Yeah,
They
I don't
wanted
see
that
them.
curb, it was only 11 feet, so they wanted just another 3 feet just to be able to pull like ancillary vehicles up, but not like fire trucks up from
Okay.
Dobkin. So that's kind of
If
why.
you had that discussion, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So we'd sent them the templates and I hadn't heard back. I think they were fine with it, but we can double check.
Okay.
So if you guys can you tell us why we're here? I mean, this is basically you need to change the design of the ramp that's going up. Can you guys just give us a real high-level overview? It's a paperwork change, but why are we going through this paperwork change?
Yeah, ultimately, when it was previously approved in Plan Commission, it was approved that we would take accommodations for a fire truck access on the front side of the buildings. In engineering and developing the plans further, as we looked at that, the load of the fire truck would require that the building were basically built like a bomb shelter, in essence. It started getting very expensive, and so we came in search for other ultimatums that were pretty easily resolved with the fire department. So with doing
That's
all
why you're
that,
here.
we had to come
And
back
now we
for
just
the
got to make
amendment.
sure that
So
the
we gotta-
documents are right so that, you know, if they sell the other property, that they can still get through there, that there's an easement. I mean, we're here basically for those paperwork changes.
I remember the discussion about the span there for the fire truck across.
I do too.
Yeah.
So a question, so I understand we're losing a parking spot or two or three, but is there any change to the, any of the walkways, pedestrian access going, the stairs, any of the facade, it's just, this is just
Nope.
those two opening, that opening and the, okay.
There's no change on the 705 site. Okay. The changes on the.
Just the
And
curb,
Amy, you
curb and
concur
gutter.
with that? We've been down this road
But even-
before
but
where
even
the
access-
applicant told us no changes.
Well, that's why I added, that's why I'm recommending that you add all other site plan elements from previous approvals
good,
remain in
good.
place.
Wow.
It's really, yeah, the changes are really meant to be those like curb and gutter, widening the access paths and relocating the curb and gutter to do that.
If I could, that was one thing on Milwaukee Street, you see we're pulling the curb and gutter back, that was to get the fire truck in based on the templates and so forth.
Okay.
And Amy, if I could, the part down by the garbage room where that easement cuts across that one parking space there, that was where, when we were doing the trash, we're thinking, well, the trash comes at really early in the morning, so it won't affect parking. I don't know that the fire department had any desire to be in that spot. They kind of want to just pull in, but they don't want to get too close type thing. So we could add, if we could just work that through with them and see if they want that parking space taken off, if it matters to them. It might be because we're combining the two easements. Now it's kind of an issue, but before, when it was trash, a car could park there during the day, the trash could pick up at night. So I don't know if it's possible to put that in motion, if that's something they could review and see if they want that one to come out. Because we hadn't talked about that in the field. It's
Yeah, I
just
think
that
the big thing is to make sure that if there was a fire truck parked there, that people would be able to get, if they had a car parked in that stall, that they would be able to get out. It just seemed really tight.
Yeah, I don't think any of those cars can get out because the truck's just going to nose in.
Okay.
And they're going to want to stay a certain distance off the building for safety, apparently.
Ultimately, that's assets,
see
not
that.
human life, so.
And hopefully it'll never happen.
Yeah, right,
Exactly.
right. And, you know, and obviously with the building the size, there's all sorts of other things they do inside the building anyway, but. So I guess my thought is, is it possible to say that space comes out if the fire department thinks it needs to come out?
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, it's since they're gonna take another look at it anyway.
Sure. I think one of the other ideas was you could, if it is a tight stall, you could restrict it to like motorcycle or compact cars
Yeah, I was
too.
thinking the compact,
Because
yeah.
I'm trying, the site plan is not reading very well up there, but I think it came down to it being too small to accommodate a car period.
If you put a pickup truck in there or something, it's really tight, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a compact car might be good there.
But really, when you look at the turning radiuses for that stall, you're not gonna fit a large vehicle in it.
Yeah, it's tight.
So this is the stall at the back of the second paragraph at the bottom. That's what we're referring to.
Yeah, and I only bring it up because I know there's not a lot of spots in that plot already. So.
Yeah. I don't remember them having, being like razor close to the number of parking spots.
Well, there is
It
no
was ju-
parking requirement,
Yeah,
but
they
I mean, it's always
they're
good to
paying
have
for it, they
parking.
It
want
was just, we tried to get as many as we could, right?
Yeah.
That was the bottom line, right? For their benefit as well as.
I mean, I think if you marked it as compact or motorcycle, it'd probably be okay
Yeah,
if you
that
want to
makes
do
sense.
that.
So are you good with so given those two, are you good with the recommendations that Amy drafted here?
If we can discuss the last line in the second paragraph.
If we just add,
Parking stall,
if required by the fire department,
Correct,
simply?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's as well.
I'll make a motion to
Oh,
approve.
go ahead,
All right,
Bob.
do it.
Yeah, so I recommend the first paragraph in the recommendation sheet here with adding at the last sentence, if required by the fire department,
That work for
and
you,
and send
Amy?
this to the common council.
Okay.
And then the second recommendation is approve the amended site plan. Again, the second paragraph adding, if required by the fire department, to the last sentence. And then adding all other site plan elements remain in place.
I'll second.
Okay. Molly, you got that?
Did you get the and adding all
I'll
other
have to
site
remember that.
plan elements are the same?
See, Bob, you're getting up to speed here. You found it efficient ways.
That's right.
Yeah, that was
Long
pretty
meetings.
smooth.
I would have thought of that.
So just so you know, the next plan, or not plan commission, common council agenda is November 15th. So we want to get the easement language cleaned up before then. So our attorney is
Said he'd
drafting
help,
new
he'd write
language
it,
right
and then
now.
you guys proof it.
So we'll have it done by the We want to have everything done by pretty much like the 8th, so next week we need to have it all complete.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Send it to myself and John.
Yep, we'll get it to you by
We'll
the
get
end
it
of the
back
week.
quickly.
So can they start digging? Oh, what's going on?
When are the stakes going in the ground?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think that.
We
well,
all
I'm not
hope
gonna
as soon as
speak.
possible.
Oh, I know. There is a developer's agreement that's still hanging out there. But yes, if they got the
But we often
developer's
give
agreement
permits to start
approved,
foundations, even though we don't always have all that.
the developer's agreement, that could be on the 15th agenda too. Maybe put that on in your, I'll bring it up tomorrow morning, we have a meeting.
I think the CSM too, that same meeting.
On the 15th?
I mean, it could be, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the CSM still has to go through council.
Yep. Yeah, it's been approved by the plan commission, needs to go to the council.
And we, whatever that comes up with the easements, we'll have to make sure it's reflected on the CSM then as well.
Yes. And you submitted a revised CSM.
There you go.
All right, Molly, you good with the motion?
Upon final review of people listed in the report, based on the conditions in the planner's letter dated, which I don't have the date, but
October
we can
21st.
get that. What is it?
October 21st.
What is going on with my thing here? My stuff keeps like jumping around and adding things in random spots. So, based on the conditions in the planner's letter dated October 21st, and adding in paragraph 2, if required by the fire department. And then, where is the other paragraph located that you want to add?
Well, if required by the fire department, gets added to the end of both paragraphs.
2 and 3?
Yep.
2 and, yeah.
One.
One and 2.
One and
Yeah.
two.
Oh, 1 and 2.
Paragraphs.
1 and 2.
1
Too many cooks.
and 2.
Good.
Okay, so dated October 21st, adding in paragraphs at the end. If required by the fire department, and also adding in the condition that all other site plan elements from the previous approval remain in place.
Correct.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to new business. DLC 0742982, DLC 07439990006, and DLC 074399999. Deshoda Road, Delafield owner, Hawthorne Farm Property LLC. Applicant Seatman Realty, care of John Seatman. Applicant seeks approval of final plat to accommodate a conservation design residential subdivision. Amy?
Okay, I'll be quick. In July of 2021, you recommended approval of a preliminary plat and specific implementation plan, subject to several conditions. The council then adopted the commission's recommendation at their August meeting. The applicants are out, if you haven't been in the area, constructing on the site currently. They did have their developer's agreement approved. And they're now proposing their final plat so that they can begin construction on the 22 single-family lots in Phase 1. The layout of the final plat has not changed since the preliminary plat really at all. Phase 1 is required to be developed within a year of that originally adopted ordinance, so they have until the summer of next year. Or actually, they're already meeting the requirement because they just have to start development. So we just recommend approval of the final plat, subject to planner, surveyor, and engineer comments. They're very minor in nature, and their engineer is working on them right now. But those conditions do need to be met before they go to Common Council, and hopefully they can get on the November 15th agenda. And then, just so you all know, the applicant has submitted a revised stormwater maintenance agreement, and then the open space management plan and subdivision restrictions will go to Common Council in November as well.
And those we already approved here?
Yeah, they were, we approved draft documents,
Right,
and so now they're just submitting final versions, which are pretty darn close to the drafts. The only change on the stormwater maintenance agreement is they did add a stormwater pond. Is that the entrance? At the entrance of the subdivision.
It looks like they're not going to be rectangles, which is nice.
They're not rectangular.
Because a lot of people do. So that's
Much
how we
more
have to-
natural.
So do you have anything you want to go over, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
If you guys are good, I'm good.
Motion to recommend to the Common Council approval of the final plat contingent on compliance with the planner, surveyor, and engineer comments.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank
All
you very
right.
much.
Who had the second?
Tim?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
DLC 0798098802, 723 Division Street. DLC 0798098003, 731 Division Street. DLC 0798098004, 737 Division Street. Owner Barron's Property LLC, applicant Jim Barron. Applicant seeks certified survey map approval to modify the lot line boundaries of 3 existing lots of record and absorb a vacated alley and portions of the vacant lot Lake Street. Amy?
Okay, so I'll use GIS for now. The applicant owns 3 adjacent lots in the southwest corner of Division Street and Lake Street. The properties were recently considered by the Plan Commission for a senior living condominium development. It did go through the entire process and was never developed. As part of that review, the city did pass a resolution that vacated the alley to the north, or it would be half the alley to the north would go to this property, and then a portion of Lake Street. But that vacation has not yet been recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds, so that needs to be done. And he's just proposing to reconfigure the 3 lots. Let's see if I can, so here are the new lots to absorb those vacations, which will actually make each of the lots a little bit bigger, and those lots will comply with the zoning district standards, and they would be used for residential construction if approved. So we do recommend approval, subject to the mayor's name being spelled appropriately, and subject to the sanitary lateral easement extension being recorded, and a reference to the document number noted on the CSM. I will check, it might be able to just be recorded as part of the CSM, but if so, the city does want language included that includes what the rights are, the maintenance and access rights are within that easement. So the recommendation is recommend approval of the Common Council of the CSM to reconfigure 3 single-family residential lots, including a vacated alley and a portion of Lake Street, subject to the compliance with the surveyor comments, and Common Council shall approve the proposed pedestrian and sanitary sewer easement on Lot 3 prior to recording the CSM, and the alley and partial Lake Street vacations shall be recorded prior to the recording of the CSM. One other thing you should consider is whether or not a sidewalk should be constructed by the owners prior to occupancy permits. So when you reviewed along Division Street, that is, when you reviewed the senior living complex, they were proposing a sidewalk. The new drafted proposed bicycle and pedestrian plan does not include a sidewalk on the north side of Division Street. It's on the south side. But putting a sidewalk on the north side would certainly connect the existing Lake Street path to a sidewalk that exists to the west. So I mean, it would be a nice connection. And if they did have to put in a sidewalk, it would need to comply with city standards and obtain approval.
Mr. Barron, anything to add?
Jim Barron to 757 Garrison Court. Well, the sidewalk came in when you had 8 units, and elderly, and we sold one of these lots, so now we're down to these three. The neighbor immediately to the west was very much opposed to us doing that, and I know many communities have sidewalks that just stub up, but I think for our use, compared to what we had, these are better lots, but it seems like a sidewalk to nowhere. Particularly since they're across.
I'll plead the
it's
fifth
across
on this one. I didn't look at it that close.
Well, Jim, when the other development was proposed, were all 4 lots a part of that?
Yes. See, we sold one off.
Okay, I got that.
And so there,
So I know what happened, and I think it occurred at Public Works. I think your brother had mentioned, or after doing some surveying, that the sidewalk was very difficult to get in there due to a grade change as you get to the west side. That was my recollection of it. I thought I could be wrong. I thought we said
Did they
no.
come to your committee? I mean,
Yes.
they did.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
this came to our committee a couple of
Okay.
times. We definitely
And this
looked at it. And I
wasn't
think that's why the south side one came into play.
Yeah. The south side runs the whole
the
length of
south
the
side
street.
is all in.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
And it's, you're going across such a non-busy street.
Yeah, I mean, usually.
I use it all the time, and I
That's kind of a
don't
short
think I've ever
block,
stopped
too.
for a car on that street.
Right.
Just
Me
sitting
neither.
there.
I understood when you have 8, my argument would be that he was proposing to completely regrade the site, and there was a lot of impervious surface or whatever, and then you had 8 owners that were, I guess it was elderly proposed. The sidewalk is
With stairs.
a different situation, but in this case, I think it's just superfluous to have it. And
I'll usually fight for sidewalks where we, or
And I
paths
do-
wherever
I
we can
do
get
too.
them.
I agree.
But we also, on our plan, we've got, like, in my neighborhood, that when you're on the streets that don't have the heavy traffic, we use those as walkable
Yeah.
streets. So I mean, that's what this looks like to me.
Does it go to nowhere? I mean, I
It will just
assumed it
go
went
to
somewhere.
that, it just go to that north-south Lake Street path.
yeah, there isn't,
So
there's no extension to the
Nothing
west,
to the
east either.
west.
East.
Yeah, or
west.
east, it would just come to that,
I don't.
it would form an L with that Lake Street path.
Yeah. I'll stay out of it. You
I
guys,
know,
I'll
and
let
I'm
you
with
guys
Tim, I
decide.
normally want to
Yeah.
see these.
'Cause I
but
like paths, but if it's a path to nowhere,
I
then-
remember we reviewed it, and my
I'll take the
recollection
grass.
was,
I'll take the grass over the concrete here.
Sure, that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I'm going, is it?
Got all that impervious stuff. Yeah.
So we're referencing a letter here. What do we got? for a motion?
There's only one.
You can just, if you want, you can go with the motion, the recommended motion to approve to Common Council of the CSM to reconfigure 3 single-family residential lots, including a vacated alley and portion of Lake Street,
Gonna read
subject
it
to the
all.
following conditions, and there's 3 conditions listed.
I have one other. The underlying CSM required rain gardens, and I think it's inconsistent. They're not noted on here. I think the surveyor missed it.
Oh,
I
are they
almost
rain
think-
garden easements? Are they?
Well, there's a notation on the previous CSM that says each lot will have a rain garden, and that was Public Works.
and that was drainage on the north
No,
side,
it's not
wasn't
drainage,
it?
it was just to maintain some of the flow on site, just like the lots up on Bleecker Street.
I do
And-
remember, yeah,
And so I think
okay.
he missed it, I would have told him to put it on here, but if you would add that, then he can put it on here and it will slide through. But the notation is on the previous CSM, it should
So
just
we-
follow the previous CSM.
Rain garden notation.
Yeah. So you can put it anywhere, we made it, you can put it anywhere, but it has to exist. So that would be a fourth.
Good trade-off for that concrete sidewalk.
I
Way to
just-
add a condition.
I would rather, well, I have an owner next door that's friends of ours, and if he has to put one in, and then we don't, it's just.
Yeah.
And if
Sure.
we may sell these to third parties, and so I'd prefer to have it noted.
Yeah. That would be for each lot, right? Like a rain garden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, how about this? Recommend approval to Common Council of the CSM to reconfigure the 3 single-family residential lots, including a vacated alley and a portion of Lake Street, subject to the 3 conditions in the planner's letter including a fourth condition where we note the presence of rain gardens on all 3 lots per the prior CSM.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
So, one comment, we do have a recorded sewer agreement, maintenance agreement. So it's really just the legal description and adding it to that area.
Agreement?
Yeah, the agreement's already out there.
Is it recorded?
Yes.
Okay. For the rest of the, are you talking about for the rest of it? Because I know there's an existing sanitary easement.
Right.
So are you saying that
And
you're
the-
just adding this legal
And the sanitary's
to
in
it?
there. The agreement's been recorded.
Yeah.
In fact, the prior developer, he was gonna have to undo all that stuff as part of his deal. But, anyway, the surveyor noted that we need to pick that up just in the vacated area of Lake Street, that 30 feet, 33 feet. So that's why
Yeah.
he did provide that additional page showing that. But we have to add that agreement to that area. Because it already exists for the rest of it.
Right,
So-
but so you have to amend the agreement to include the additional legal?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine, as long as you show us that
We'll
you've
do
done that.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item C, DELC 0795036-348 Evelyn Avenue. Owner applicant George Menden. Applicant seeks site plan and appearance review approval to construct an addition to an accessory building that exceeds the size requirements per section 52-110 of the zoning code. Amy?
Okay. Just trying to find, he had some very nice renderings here.
Yeah.
They're there.
Oh, but I'm not sharing my screen, or not the right
Hey,
screen.
there we are.
There we are. Okay. So Mr. Menden is proposing an addition to an existing accessory structure which requires plan commission approval due to the size. The property is zoned R1 residential, single-family residential, medium density on the land use plan. The property is located on Evelyn Avenue, which is in the southwest part of the city. It's 30,578 square feet. He has as you can see on the site plan, a residence with a larger detached garage, which is 568 square feet. And then he has a smaller utility shed that's 217 square feet. And he wants to add this larger addition to that utility shed, which would make that structure a total of 867 square feet. It does comply with all other zoning provisions, other than that the ordinance states that, what does the ordinance state exactly? You can have one detached garage not to exceed 1,200 square feet, which he had, that's the building to the north. And then one utility building not to exceed 240 square feet. Anything above that requires plan commission approval. So he would be going to the 240 to the 867. We did conduct a site visit as a staff, and there are some large trees on the neighboring property to the west, and then there are also some trees on the east lot line that help break up the view of the structures. And the structures are well below the floor area requirement. This structure will match the existing utility shed, at least the materials and coloring, and then the roof shingles will also match the home and the garage. I think he's got some nice pictures in the packet that shows what that looks like. The building inspector has determined that it complies with the zoning requirements and there are no unresolved issues. So it's up to you whether or not you want to recommend approval. I guess in doing that, looking at the compatibility of the neighborhood and aesthetics of the proposal are important factors. So we recommend approval, subject to the size and design as presented in the application and subject to issuance of building permit. You could consider requiring that a deed restriction be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds prohibiting commercial or use or human habitation.
Alrighty, why don't you give us your name and address and tell us why you're here?
My name is George Menden. The address is 348 Evelyn Avenue. The shed that I currently have is actually a workshop, a wood workshop, and I'm outgrowing it. Purchased some additional equipment, and I just don't have enough space there. So what I'm asking for on the proposal is to increase the size. I also have a small shed in the very back of the lot, which just it holds like my my lawnmower, things of that nature. I want to move that into this particular building as well and take that down. So basically consolidate everything into like one building. So.
And I failed to mention, he's removing the shed on the very south end of the property and also a fairly substantial playset structure.
Yeah, the playset's already down, so.
Okay.
You don't use it anymore?
No. I think I'm meeting all of the other guidelines as far as like staying 20 feet away from the lot line, things of that nature. So I haven't heard of anything that I would not be meeting.
I like it, but I question that deed restriction. I don't know that I've ever seen that before.
I think we did it.
Did we?
I think we did it for, there's a property up behind St. Joan of Arc Church that had.
Oh, yeah, that
it was
guy had
it was
a
a property
big
where there was
acreage.
like a kennel that was split up.
I do remember
And
that.
he wanted to remodel it and add on, and I think we did it there too. That was a long time ago.
I remember that one.
But it's because I think it lends to, I mean, we had a denial if somebody wanted to expand something on Highway 80, near Highway 83 for commercial clay pottery, or forget what it was.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're just
that's-
keeping it out of the commercial
Okay.
side. I mean, that's pretty
That's why I
consistent.
raised the question.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
So a couple of things. One, he's not proposing any like gravel or concrete driveway to the garage, which is nice. It kind of keeps it, at least the appearance, more of a rural nature. But it has been my past when structures get a little on the bigger side, then new owners come in and they think
That's the
it's
thing.
suddenly a
Of
perfect
course.
opportunity for some kind of
Some
commercial
guy wants to
use.
run a landscaping company out of there, right?
And although it would be a violation, it's just easier to enforce the
Uh-huh.
violation
It
when you can say
happens,
you were
right.
aware.
Sure.
But it's up to you.
Just so I'm clear, I mean, with him putting the addition on and taking down the stuff he's saying, it's within our purview to allow that amount of square footage.
Yeah,
Right? We're not
any-
creating a precedent or anything like that by doing that. Is that fair to say?
No, the plan commission has to you have to review accessory structures, in this case, larger than 240 square feet, and then any other structures more than 1,200 square feet. Just so you know, as a side note, Scott and I are going to bring text amendments for this section. It's pretty confusing the way it's written. So we'd like to clean it up. But yes, it's not
on the list.
It's not a special exception or variance, it's plan commission approval.
That works. I recommend we approve it, subject to the size and design as presented, and with the requirement that a deed restriction be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds prohibiting commercial use or human habitation.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
You're in business.
Happy woodworking.
Thank you.
You're still in the acquisition mode.
I'm sorry?
You're still in the acquisition mode, acquiring more things.
Whatever it takes.
Thank you. We will draft a deed restriction for you to look at, and then that has to be recorded before you can get a building permit from Scott.
All right, we'll move on to D. DLC 079997001, 920 Indian Springs. Owner 920 Indian Springs LLC. Applicant Russell Raposa. Applicant seeks site plan and appearance review and review of business plan of operation to accommodate the construction of an addition to an existing building and modified parking for Delafield Dental. Welcome back.
You're
I think you're last, so
Yes,
you get the
yes.
award.
I came in quite late and still sat around.
Well, that was good. Amy, can you help us out, please?
Sure. Are you Russell?
Yes,
or?
I am.
Okay.
Russell Raposa Design, 12690 West Greenbrier Lane, New Berlin.
Okay, so the property is on Indian Spring Drive, south of the interstate, just east of the MSI development or County Highway C and 94 development that's been talked about. Property is zone B5 business, which is office and research commercial. It's office on the land use plan. The existing use is appropriate for the zoning district. It is currently a dental office on 1.85 acres. They are proposing to expand to include additional cleaning and procedure rooms on the first floor. That addition would be 1,872 square feet. The lower level will be, the whole structure will be remodeled. And then the lower level will be used for offices, a break room, and mechanicals. And then they are also proposing to reconstruct the parking lot, and then they would remove an existing secondary access from the adjacent property to the west. Before they can do that, we will want written documentation from them that they are okay with that. And they would restore that with turf grass. Let's see here. The addition does meet all dimensional requirements. They do have a dumpster that's proposed here in the southeast corner of the, or I guess you could call it southwest corner of the parking lot, east parking lot, whatever. It'll be a block structure and fully screened gate that the coloring will match the existing structure or building on the property. The parking that they have proposed, 43 stalls, does comply with the ordinance requirement. They are also proposing 3 ADA compliant stalls. Because the lower level parking lot is 25 parking stalls, whereas they're allowed up to 24 without a landscape island, they either need to propose a landscape island, which is probably a little too much for this area, or you can review and approve perimeter trees. And we'll look at the landscape plan, but they probably could add a couple more perimeter trees on the north side of the property to meet that provision. They are removing 23 trees, and 3 of those trees require mitigation with a total of 30 inches in DBH. So they are proposing to mitigate rather than use in lieu payment. They're going to install 4 maple trees, 2 hackberry trees, and 4 oak trees, each at 3 inches diameter breast height. They are also proposing a significant amount of new landscaping that currently doesn't exist on the property. And then the majority of that southern portion of the property is currently wooded, I believe mostly with the deciduous plantings. As far as landscaping goes, the Plan Commission may want to consider requiring evergreen plantings at the perimeter of the parking lot on the west and south sides to help screen the parking lot and traffic lights from the vehicles during the winter months, since there are quite a few deciduous trees. Going to the building.
And erosion control?
Yep, I can skip the building for a minute. The erosion control, so the proposal does not trigger stormwater management. There's less than a half acre of new impervious surface. However, the city can review drainage and erosion control, which our engineer intends on doing. There is some concern regarding adverse drainage and existing patterns, and so we'll do a full review, and if there are any issues, it's possible there may be some revisions required to the existing grading plan. And then again, erosion will have to be looked at to make sure that the site is stabilized. Other than that, they're not proposing any lighting or signage, and you can see the architectural renderings are on the screen. It's really going to match the existing building pretty closely. The addition will not have the cedar shake on the wall that's on the front facade or the brick that exists. in that lower level. So it'll just match the vinyl siding, which will have the same color and roof structure. Let's see, am I missing anything else? I believe that is, one more thing. He is proposing a business plan of operation, and it's not written in the report, but they would be open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and they would have 5 doctors and 9 support staff. So recommendation, the Plan Commission should review the architectural materials and color and determine whether that's appropriate for the addition. If they're appropriate, recommend approval subject to several conditions. 1, a building permit shall be issued by the building inspector prior to commencing any construction. 2, the applicant must submit a signed agreement from the neighboring property indicating that they approve of removing the western access drive and proposed restoration. The agreement shall be sent to the planning staff prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance and prior to a building permit. An erosion control permit shall be issued by the city engineer prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance and prior to the issuance of a building permit. The engineer did do a preliminary review, and those comments were included in the packet. The landscape plan shall be updated to clearly label existing and proposed vegetation. It was kind of challenging to see which of those trees, mostly in plantings, were existing versus proposed. And then I just want to make sure that the mitigation, I had counted that 10 trees were proposed to mitigate, but then when I was looking, I could only find 8, but that could just be me not being able to find them all. But I will want to make sure that that's completely approved prior to, again, certificate of compliance and prior to issuance of a building permit. And then I have in here the plan shall include any modifications required by the Plan Commission. So if you do require those evergreens at the parking lot, for example, they would need to show that on a plan. And then finally, the site, civil, and landscape plans shall be consistent with each other. We did find some inconsistencies with parking and various line work between the plans. Minor stuff.
All right, great.
That's all.
So you want to give us an overview of what this was before, why you're changing?
So right now it's existing Delafield Dental. They are looking to just expand the lower level, really, other than the basement on the new addition, isn't going to change downstairs, other than one toilet room has to be updated to ADA standards today. On the upper floor level, the main dental area, they're going to just readjust their reception area, and then they're adding, I believe, if I remember correctly, 7 or 8 treatment rooms in the back. So really the addition is to the south side of the existing building. As you drive by, unless you get up on the upper parking lot level, you really won't even notice that anything has changed with the building itself, just because it's really at the back of the building. In that, they knew that as the parking exists today, I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but it's just a mess. So they took this opportunity to really kind of clean it up and make it a more usable parking lot, because the shape that was there, that was existing, just didn't really work well. People were parking all over the place at different angles because it was really just an odd shape. So they took this advantage to say, hey, if we're going to update, let's get that straightened out and worked out, and just kind of move forward with it. So really, same owners, same business. And really, they're just looking to add more chairs so that they can continue to grow.
All right. Questions?
It's your neighbor, Laura.
It is, and I do have issues. So does my neighbor next to me. As far as pine trees, you have to be very careful, because even tonight when I was coming here, hit a deer up on the frontage road, just past the dental office, because they'll just eat them. So you have to be really careful what type you put in. My neighbor next to me, he spoke to me today and said that he has a problem with the parking lot. They get to see it year-round, and the lights shine right into their home in the evening, especially in the winter months, because it gets dark so early in that. Also, the drainage. that it's been notorious ever since I've lived there that his yard gets a lot of rainwater off that slope. So bad that I remember one time they had it pumped and it was flowing in as fast as they were pumping it out because of the water coming off the slope. I get it, and actually I got it last month when we had a big gully washer. My husband called me out to the back corner, just down from the upper parking lot, and there was you could see where there had been a regular river. It came down with so much force, it removed all the leaves, all the pine needles, and actually dug right into the soil. And my west side of my driveway will stay wet sometimes till midsummer. I've already dug a hole over there to plant a tree, and it filled with water.
So they are recommending moving that to the front?
There should have been, years ago, some sort of swell put in,
Yeah,
or
if
some
you
kind of
swale it
water.
to the front, there's that low point
Yeah,
right
but
before.
that's in the front.
Well, that's what they're talking about
No,
doing.
this is on the south side of the building.
Yeah, they're talking about swaling it to the front.
Yeah.
Bring the south water to the front.
Okay.
In here.
Because, well, I would have to see that, because my neighbor now, he just had a new septic system put in, and his mound system runs the whole length of the north side, just of his property, which would be the south side of theirs, just down from the
Right.
slope.
So if they move it to the north side of the building towards Indian Spring Drive, that would benefit everyone.
Well, it would be a pretty long run.
Actually, and I'm looking at the grading plan, and everything we have is feeding down toward, they have that little pond thing in the front.
In the front.
Everything feeds down to that area, and on the southwest side of the building, it comes around and there's a low point on the west side where his septic system is. There's a low point on the west side where that all goes.
Yeah.
So again, I think you'll find that with the reworking of this parking lot, the water's gonna flow a little bit differently. We're not proposing of throwing any water to the east or to the south with this addition. It's all going north and west. So, again,
Yeah, because
beyond
it's
that.
been a traditional problem for us.
And Amy, staff's going to review exactly
Yeah.
what Laura's
Yeah.
concerns are and verify that what the applicant
So,
said is
and-
actually going to happen, right?
And I'll throw out there, and there was interaction between our civil engineers and staff civil engineers, and through this whole process, we're actually reducing paved area, and we're increasing the total net impervious area by 872 feet, and that increase in the 872 feet is actually the building, so part of the building when you look at it. So we're actually, at the end of the day, it should be a better position for what is there compared to what is there now. Again, that whole parking lot is just kind of.
Yeah, it is.
It sounds like you're headed in the right direction.
Right,
Our
yeah.
concern is, we don't want to use the word should,
Yeah.
we want to use the word will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and as I look at this, it's definitely taking the water down the drive and turning it into where it gets down to that front depression on the east side of the building. On the west side, it's definitely bringing it down to that west side depression. So again, part of the problem is, I think, is this whole area, I'm gonna assume, gets wet.
Very wet.
Yeah, so it's nice, and it's
As long as
easy
you're
to
keeping
put-
your water
Yeah,
on your
and
property, that's all
right,
anybody
and
cares
and
about, right?
by ordinance and by code, we have to.
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
And we're not planning on trying to dump it anywhere else.
Right. We would not be opposed to a solid fence instead of trees on the south side between us.
So are you talking about at the end of the driveway?
Along the south property line.
Around
South property, yeah.
Well, that's.
What about south of the parking lot?
Yeah, because.
Just because it's
Well-
open there?
If they
I'm just
screen, if they
thinking-
screen all along the parking lot.
Right at the top
At the
there.
top.
On the
Yeah, that's
upper
the south-
parking
the
lot.
south
That'll
end
block
parking
it
lot.
all.
Right, because right now I get the headlights.
Yeah,
as soon as
then
the
we
leaves are off the trees.
are always concerned about that with
Yeah.
neighbors.
And
right?
And because it's so high.
And I get your point that I don't care what you put in there for evergreens, the deer are gonna eat it up.
Right.
I like the idea of a
Yeah,
fence.
right. And it would only have to do the upper lot, it wouldn't have to be the whole run.
Right.
Just that upper parking lot, like, kind of like this,
The corner?
Right, the corner of
So we
it.
could take, relatively speaking, Amy, if we went from like the dumpster enclosure around that corner edge, so
Mhm.
along that south edge and then turn it up the east edge.
Yeah,
Hold on.
And we can use, we're using a Trex or a Trex-like material on the gates.
Right.
We could do that along that property line.
yeah. And then my neighbor, it would be the parking lot, the bottom parking lot on the south side. Because he said he can see the headlights from that, they shine in his house.
We are throwing quite a bit of landscaping on that end portion. I don't know if you can jump to that landscaping plan. We have some, we can switch some of this low-grow stuff to maybe some low-grow evergreens. Again, knowing that deer are going to have some issues with it. It's a very difficult task to try and figure out, or we could add some fence screening in there too. I guess that's.
So just sticking on this upper lot?
Yeah.
I know
So
where
if
the
we
times
went-
grasses.
Are you just going across here or
I was going to say, and turn it down
white
to
pines
the,
like I
to the
did, 'cause
north.
they don't like
right here?
Yeah.
Like
So
these
that
two,
edge.
this L?
And then, again, on the
Right here?
other end, on the west end, we could kind of match it, I guess. I just don't know I don't know what the extents need to be.
So Laura, looking at this lot, the upper lot.
Yeah.
Do you want it to go across from the sidewalk all the way across where the stalls are too?
Just
Or
on
just-
the south leading edge of the upper parking lot and a little bit to the east, kind of like a corner type thing. If that were fenced in, then I wouldn't see it because it's very high. When I look out my kitchen window, I'm almost eyeball to eyeball with it.
I might need you to draw that.
As long as they're not where they're plowing the snow.
Yeah,
That's
right,
it.
Move it
yeah,
over.
that's the other thing I thought of, but it wouldn't have to go the whole length that they could.
That's all I can
Yeah.
do because of this screen, the Zoom screen. This is the best.
Because that's
I
why
can
I'm saying
zoom.
it doesn't need to go the whole length, it just that
So
kind of
Laura, are you
corner.
talking here? Are you talking here? Is this
Yes,
where you're talking
yes,
about?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the upper
So
lot.
you need some kind of light
and-
barrier to keep, you're not concerned about over
No,
here, correct?
No, just kind of the corner,
It's from here to here
yeah, a little bit.
and
more-
further?
About there,
Okay.
Square it off.
Okay.
just squared.
As cars come up and turn in, this is going to naturally block it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my suggestion is to go here.
Okay,
Here,
got it.
because even when people come up here,
Yep,
this
yep.
portion will block, and I can get it back further.
Okay.
This portion will block it, so when they get in here, it's not
Yep.
aiming at.
Right.
And so this takes care of you, Laura. What
Yep.
about your neighbor? Where is he concerned?
My neighbor, he's,
Is that over here?
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
the
that's where
lot
she's
there,
talking.
straight
over-
south.
Can you
From the
flip
lot.
over to
Yeah.
the landscape plan, though? 'Cause I just want to.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and that's where I go, we can, there you go. So this is all some lower growth stuff, existing trees here. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
found the light. So there's existing trees here, and there's low growth stuff here.
Which hazel?
Right.
We could
That's,
intermix some.
Evergreen.
Some evergreen, again, I know the deer is an issue, otherwise, again, we can do kind of this.
A
We can
fence.
still leave this landscaping here,
You can do
just
this
run a fence
landscaping
behind the
grass,
landscape.
and you just, you
What- is
hack
this
it down,
the
spring
western
it
edge?
back in a month.
Okay,
It
he's down
stays up
here.
all winter long.
He's
so
down here.
What, they should be.
So where would he be
it's
concerned
east,
about?
so
These
it's
three
east.
cars?
Grasses,
Yeah,
I
it would
live
be
over
right
in
here.
the deer eat it
Okay.
all.
But this is at the bottom of the hill.
You can't touch mine.
The-
You can see it
Right
everything,
through
but
our woods now, it browsed everything.
Yeah. But
The
it
step up there. is
shines right into his house. he says.
Because the grading from down here is from 940 to 90.
Yeah, but it's the south end of this.
put in the
It's gonna be
deer
down
stand on the
here.
roof.
Right, what I'm saying is, where we're coming off here, there's a retaining wall that's coming around here.
Mm-hmm.
Up here, you're at 972, 73.
Mm-hmm.
Down here, you're at 961.
So you're saying this area
Yeah.
is higher than this
This
area?
is 10 feet higher than this.
Right, and this is where the water flows off into his
Right,
yard.
but that has
But
nothing to do
he's
with
saying
Yeah, we're talking
that-
about headlights.
Yeah, no, he's saying that he sees the headlights from the lower parking lot.
I don't know.
It seems hard.
It's like a carport down there.
The
Because
fact that there's
his
a 10-foot
property,
hill
his
makes it-
property, only a little bit of my
We're 10
property
feet,
borders
so
this. It's pretty much
parking lot
right
is
here.
Yeah.
over 6 inches.
We just want to make
His-
sure we're getting in the
his
right
is
place,
whole
that's
thing.
all.
This is
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah. So this, I get this over here, I'm just, I don't see how if it's 10 foot high here that.
Yeah. I don't know. He'll be coming to the
Okay.
public hearing we have.
At the back of the building at the top, we're at 975, and at the bottom.
It would be
at
nice
the parking lot,
if-
we're at 964, so it's 11 feet.
If they actually
And then what
went and
elevation is
spoke
he
with
at?
them and walked
Okay,
around.
well, yeah, suggest that.
I can do, let's see here.
Actually,
My recommendation would be that you actually go to my neighbor next door and walk the lot with him, and he can better explain.
So the neighbor's at like 960, 958.
I'm 935, and he's next to me to the west.
So the neighbor is low.
Yeah.
Neighbor is low. I could see how,
so
so this is the neighbor you're talking about? This person, or who are, this,
Yeah. No,
which lot, this one?
that one, right, Laura?
Right there.
Because you're to the right of him.
Yeah.
So he's at, or she is at 960, the house, and if you go north, I mean, you've got this hill, but if they're seeing something in a parking lot over here, it is,
But it goes up, I guess you're saying through here?
so it's like 964 right here?
Right.
So it's higher, the parking lot's higher than his house. If, I'm assuming the lights are shining like at an angle here.
Probably when they pull in.
But they won't be pulling in there anymore. That goes away.
Right, that might
Ah.
change.
I
So-
know,
Yeah.
there's three parking stalls at that lower edge that face that way, but they're facing more into where we've got that retaining wall.
Right,
Okay.
that makes
Whole west
sense.
driveway
So
goes
that should be
away.
solved then.
So,
I think,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't,
Hopefully.
It's still a good idea to talk with him, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
to make sure he's understands and all is good.
Can you put the fence on the other lot on the land, I mean,
Yeah.
we do want a
We
little
can-
bit of a clearer landscape plan.
Yep.
If you want to plant evergreens, I would suggest white pines. They're native to Wisconsin, and nothing bothers them, and the deer don't like them. That's what lines the back of my lot. They grow fast and they grow tall.
Okay, what kind of motion are we looking for here?
I think I read it earlier, but I'm sure you would love for me to read it again. It's in the report.
Does it recommend to council or?
Nope. Well, are you all okay with the architecture materials and colors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If so, recommend approval subject to the following conditions. And there are 5 conditions. Do you want me to list them again?
no.
No.
It's in your letter.
5 conditions that were written in my letter.
I'll motion to approve this, meeting the 5 conditions shown on our report. In addition to that, some fencing to screen from headlights for the properties to the south.
Second.
All righty. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We don't have to
Discussion
schedule
of band at
Thanks
this
for
time
working
of
with
night.
us.
Amy, we didn't have to schedule.
Okay, item 12,
schedule a
zoning
public
and
hearing.
ordinance provisions, we have none.
The business.
Item 13, report of city officials, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting will be November 17th. Regular meeting submittal deadline will be November 2nd. Move on to B, correspondence, anything in the packet? Item C, planner economic development project update.
Going back to the meeting dates, just a reminder, it's bumped up a week, which means the agenda will be pretty light because there's hardly any time in between the meetings. Okay. Economic development project, we are going to present areas 1 and 2 at the next meeting for discussion. And then if all goes well, you may be scheduling a public hearing for the December meeting. Area 1 being the development at CN 94, adding language related to residential use that is complementary to a medical center. And then potentially amending the zoning of the property in the southwest corner of Hillside and Maple, which happens to be where SCH resides. That's also a simple map amendment from B4, I believe, to B6, which the Ascot property to the south is B6. So we'll bring staff reports to the next meeting.
The one thing I want to remind you guys of and gals is we're starting with some of the easier ones, and we want you to get comfortable with the process. As we move along to some of the other ones, it's going to be, maybe a little bit more complicated, but the process will be the same.
Yeah.
We're kind of doing that on purpose. We want to walk
Training us.
before we run, right?
And the schedule,
So focus, the changes we want, that are suggested, but also try to keep track of the process because it's just going to repeat and repeat and repeat.
And the, if you want to look at the schedule, it's at the end of the focus, the economic development report, which is on the website at www.delafieldgrowth.com.
Okay.
All right, is that it?
I got.
Okay, D, building inspector, no report. Seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:55 p.m. Thank you, everyone. We got in before 10 o'clock.
Oh, I want to introduce you. I think I can do this. I know the meeting's over, but that is Bryce Hembrook, a new planner with SEH. And so you may see him around if I'm out of the office or, on vacation in the Caribbean. Bryce might be sitting in for me. So he's been coming to our meetings on Wednesday just to get familiar with what this community is all about. And
Bryce?
Bryce.